Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live video. It's the 23rd of January 2026. It's Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining us today as we take a look back at some of the systems we built in the past as both a reminder and an introduction for people who may have missed these particular builds. And you know, there's plenty to choose from here, and I decided to pick two of my favorites for today to just kind of follow up and see how they're doing. And if you recall the big blue Xynos build here, we've had this for some time, and it's been through about 4 different motherboard upgrades, and works great. You know, I never put this side panel back on it because it's always in a perpetual state of upgrading. I always feel like the latest and greatest always has to be installed here. But I'll tell you more about this for those of you who are new and haven't seen it, and of course for those of you who are longtime viewers, you'll remember seeing this in a number of videos going back about 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, and what the status of it is. And then, of course, we've got this little InWin case right here. For those of you that remember, this is built using one of Forum's mini ITX motherboards, and it just fit in there like it was meant to be. And again, we'll just kind of follow up, see how they're aging. I think this one had a bad BIOS battery. When they sit unplugged for a long time, the BIOS battery will drain much more rapidly than if you leave it plugged in. So because I don't have room to plug everything in, it has to rely on the battery to keep the BIOS up to date. And so it drains the battery faster. Normally the batteries last about 5 or 6 years. And you know, it's hard to say. The motherboard that's in here is probably about that old anyway. So how much of that is related to not being plugged in, or how much more time you would have gotten out of the battery had we left this plugged in. It doesn't have to be turned on, but it must be plugged in with the power supply in the on position. And that provides a little ghost power to the board in the background. It'll like light up the RGB on the motherboard, even when the system is off. But when it's completely unplugged or the power supply switch is switched to the off position, that's when it's relying solely on that BIOS battery to keep the BIOS up to date. So that being said, I did turn these on and went through the updates on them. I am curious if a BIOS update exists here and if we could flash it correctly this time, since I've learned a lesson. At least I think I've learned a lesson. And of course, entertain any questions or comments that you have. But first, welcome in everybody. Thank you for joining me today. A shout out to our friend Buster out there in Edinburgh, Scotland, who contributes an Amazon gift card in lieu of Super Chat. As always, thank you so much, our friend Buster. And I think we usually get a bit of a weather report. We'll see how it's compared to Phoenix, because we are getting a little chilly and expecting some rain today and tomorrow. Buster says the temperature in Edinburgh is 42 degrees Fahrenheit or 5.5 degrees Celsius and raining, and you can only stay for an hour. All right, well, we're glad to have you here, even if it is for an hour. And yeah, we're about 20 degrees warmer than that. I think we're around 65, 64. And then it's overcast, looking like it wants to rain. And that feels like, you know, what winter's supposed to be. So I'm not depressed about that at all. It's bring on the overcast skies, bring on the rain. We can use the break here in Phoenix. And let's see who else says hello. Jonathan Fells joins us. I'd love for JC says hello. Oh, it's Isaiah. Okay, welcome in, Isaiah. Scott says hello. Ooh, he says it's a very cold negative 16 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill of 38 degrees Fahrenheit in north central Wisconsin. Yeah, it's going to be chilly. Yeah. And Mara says we've got an email. Edward I'm sorry, where did I see Edward? Eddie Casanova says hello, and Sean Skinner. How I got Edward Skinner out of that is is me just reading too quickly and needing to put on my glasses, apparently. Let me check that email real quick. Oh, our friend Mark Gaines sends an Amazon gift card in lieu of Super Chat. Right on. Thank you. Cheers, Mark, joining us from Northern Ireland. And yeah, I think I will get my glasses out because, well, all I can tell you is some days the eyeballs work a little better than others, and today looks like a day where I'm kind of on the fence. They're working a little bit better. Some days are just terrible. But I'll just put them on. Let's see who else is joining us here in our chat room. 3D Everything and David Graham are saying hello. Of course, Mara, our channel administrator, joining us and saying hello. Thomas Mac T, Doman 2000 and Air 1032 say hello. There's James Disher. Oh yeah, I guess there's a big storm in the eastern part of the United States, and you guys be safe out there. Stay warm. It is wintertime. You know, this was June. I'd be a little concerned, but you know, it's winter. We have storms. That's nothing unusual, but you got to be safe. Got to be careful out there. Andy says hello and joins us. And let's see, we also see Xander Vanderhoven saying hello. David Herzog says hello. Chris Johnson joins us here in the chat. Phil Stodd, Chris Johnson. Bajin Guy says hello, saying it's a 6-degree Fahrenheit temperature there in Ohio with a wind chill of a negative 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Woo! Yeah, it is officially, I can say it sounds like wintertime has finally arrived. You know, and it's getting cold in Arizona and Nevada. We know it's probably a lot colder everywhere else. So that's par for the course. Dwayne Blackwelder joins us here in the chat and says hello. I hope I haven't missed anyone there. Nicholas Barlow, speaking of which, says hello here in the chat. So yeah, this is a live video and it's meant for you to interact with me and each other while we're live. And in the meantime, I thought we'd go through these previous builds that have been with us for a while. This one's a lot newer, say, than this one. We've had this one a long time. This is the Xynos G3. This is a handcrafted machine, CNC machined gentleman in Canada makes these. They're all handmade. Well, they're custom made and put into the CNC machine. I guess the CNC machine's doing all the work, but each piece has to be inspected because if there's any flaws or burrs, anything like that, the whole piece has to get melted down and start over again. The reason for that is the way that it's painted. They offer this in 3 colors. They've got the black, blue, and red, and they're anodized, meaning it's dipped in a liquid and hit with electricity, and the color then attaches to them. It bonds into the metal. And so if there's any imperfections in the metal, you can't get it out. The only thing you can do is melt it down and try again. So this case, it's sold, it still probably sells for right around $2,000. And you know, what's interesting to me is that $2,000 seemed like a whole lot more money 10 years ago than it does today. When you consider people are dropping $3 grand, $4 grand on video cards, and you'll likely have a case a lot longer than you'll have a video card. So, you know, I'm sure many of you watching have replaced the motherboard in your case that you're using now at least once. And yet it's one of the things that a lot of people try and get away cheap with. When it's there on the desk and you're staring at it every day, it's one of the most pronounced visible features of your computer. And yet, like the power supply, a lot of people just kind of ignore it. And, you know, once again, it's the things we're ignoring we probably need to be paying more attention to. But the internet draws a lot of attention to CPU cooling and the latest CPU that's, you know, $500, that's 10% faster than the one you've got now. You're going to pay $500 and do all that labor just to go 10% faster? I mean, back in the day when our speeds were single-digit speeds or double-digit speeds, 10% made a difference. But you got 4-digit speeds, you know, we're into the thousands of megahertz. 10% more of thousands, it doesn't really add up to much because there's only so fast we are as the people using the computers. It's not like a self-driving computer that can now drive faster. The limitation primarily on computers today, with some exceptions, but overall, is the end user that needs the upgrade. So if you're complaining or concerned about the price of RAM and storage and video cards being so outrageous, maybe it's time to reconsider 2026 is the year for upgrading your case, something you probably haven't given much thought to. There's still really good bargains to be had out there. And, you know, cases like this, they don't make these in bulk. So they can only be made, you know, so many per week. And once they're sold, it's going to take a while for them to make some more. So if you want something really unique that stands out, you know, these are still available today. And this one is a little unique in that I had asked the gentleman who made it, John Xynos, I said, I'd love to put a liquid cooler on this, but you don't have anywhere for a liquid cooler to go. Primarily because there's not a whole lot of cable airflow management in here. Basically none. So if we could, the airflow that was in here are just the 2 fans on top that they're configured, I believe, to blow air out the top, but not sure where the air would be coming in at. So, you know, if there was a suggestion for improvement, it would be airflow. When I talked to the creator about it, he said, listen, I've been playing Call of Duty on this thing, and I run it, you know, 12 hours. It doesn't have any overheating problems, so he doesn't believe it needs other ventilation. I said, well, fair enough. I mean, it's the concept of it, right? Not necessarily the actual practical application. So I said, listen, what I'd love to do is I'd love to put a liquid cooler on here. Then I wouldn't have to worry about it, right? If I could just change out an air cooler for a liquid cooler, but we got no place to mount a liquid cooler. And he said, I can make something for that. So he asked me which liquid cooler I wanted to use, and I mentioned an NZXT Kraken cooler. And he custom designed this piece right here, which is engraved. It says Kraken on the side. It's got lighting underneath of it. And these little Venturis, I guess is what they're called, they were on a thinner piece of metal. So he just said, take these off of that thin piece of metal, replace it with this, and it should just fit right in. And the radiator should fit like a glove. The downside of this is, of course, if I want to change this radiator out for one that's compatible with a newer CPU, I either have to reach out to NZXT and see if they have the newer mounting kits available for the CPUs that have come out since, or I have to make sure I get the exact same size radiator that fits inside of this. This is one solid piece of aluminum that's been milled out. It's been hollowed out by a machine. So this thing is built to withstand a nuclear war, basically. It'll melt before it'll break. So I am now reluctant to change what's in here. And, you know, I kept thinking, this is like a Ferrari of computer cases, and I want it to have the best parts possible. I wouldn't want a Ferrari and stick a cheap little tiny low horsepower engine in it. Sure, it'll look like a Ferrari, but it won't work like one. And much the same way, when we were sent this for review, we did not have the budget to buy super expensive parts. And once we started getting busy and being able to do builds, I was busy actually helping real customers and set this off to the side. So it was either we were really slow and we didn't have the budget, or we got really busy and we didn't have the time. But then we found some time and we upgraded what was in there. Actually, it was a hollow case for a long time because I wanted the best of the best inside of this case, which is big money. Doesn't seem like big money today, but 10 years ago, different story. And it wasn't long before I got it done, before the next one, the next generation came out. Anyway, I think we skipped a generation or 2 or 3 and upgraded it again. And then we upgraded it again. And I think this is the 4th upgrade. And because of the radiator and the custom work that was done to this top piece, It's kind of locked me into this config. So here's the deal. What we have in here is a Intel i9 9900KS, which was the highest end 9th gen processor for the desktop you could buy. There was no higher level. Then we got the Asus Maximus Gene 7, I think is what the motherboard is. Again, it's a very expensive motherboard. This costs 3 times more than other motherboards that were mini ITX at the time. We also bought a video card for this, which I never took out of the box. It's a GeForce 2080 Ti, and the box has never been opened. The tape is sealed on it still. I hope the thing works, but the idea was to get the graphics card in here. But I'm like a perfectionist, and when it comes to this, I want this to be a showpiece, and I want it to be the best it can be. But since we built this, the 10th gen, the 11th gen, the 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen, and 15th gen, chips have come out. And I've got to tell you, there's not really a whole lot of speed difference from my perspective going from 9th gen to 15th gen. It really does depend on what you're using the computer for, but there's nothing wrong with the 9900KS whatsoever. It still holds its own and will be impressive to just about anybody other than somebody that has a very intensive resource-hungry application they run. Let me plug this in and let me show you just how fast it is. You'll see for yourself. Let me grab a power cable, and let's see, we're going to need an Ethernet cable so we have internet access. I need the HDMI cable so we can output the video feed to your monitor. And I need a keyboard and a mouse, which I have over here. So we'll plug a keyboard and mouse into this bad boy. I'm just going to set them back here for right now. We'll plug that dongle in right back here. And then the power cable that I was reaching for, I think I'm standing on. I am. Well, at least it wasn't going to run away. All right, power cable, plug that in. Now the power supply switch is in the off position. When I turn it on, as I said, there will be power flowing through the board even though it's off. When it's on, you'll see the liquid cooler light up, and then these lights underneath here will light up. And it's got a touch capacitive button that looks like the Stargate symbol right over here on the side. And what threw me on that is it's not like a cell phone where you just tap it. You actually have to kind of push in a bit, and then you'll see it lights up. And then I've got the, this comes with a secondary 7-inch color screen, and that's configured to just mirror the main screen. Now, when this initially turns on, you'll notice the NZXT, the text on the cooler's upside down. That's because of the way we had to mount the cooler. Normally, the hoses go towards the RAM, and I didn't want to cover the RAM up, and I turned the cooler around. And when the NZXT software loads, once you see Windows load, then that cooler will display my logo and change the orientation. So there's the desktop coming up on our duplicate screen. And there's the cooler all loaded up the way I like it. We've got our Trident G-Skill RAM in there, and this thing is whisper quiet. Like I don't hear a thing. Keeping in mind we've got 2 fans up here, 2 nocturnal fans running, and we have the fan running here in our Seasonic power supply. Now this down here, this little LCD screen, you can program that for like a CPU temp and things like that. But I'd have to get with the manufacturer. I'd have to get with Xynos on that because it involves some programming. And I have no idea how to program that. And I'm sure he's already got the program written and he could just send me a copy of it for displaying the basic, temperatures and of the CPU and other things that would be very commonly watched there. But it's just text. That's all that displays is text. And because it's programmable, you can program it however you want. You'll see the lighting here kind of turning on and off underneath here. And if I go to HDMI input number 3, that should take us to the desktop. There it is. Okay, so this is the Xynos build. And let me go full screen on my side. That way I can see it the way you do. Yeah, here we go. Let me just sort all this. Sort by name. Sort it by name one more time to put the icons from A to Z instead of from Z to A. If I right click on the, let's see, first of all, are we in 1080? Let me see, display settings. Screen 1. It's in 4K, so let's drop it to 1080 so I can see it a little better. Keep those changes, that looks better to me. Okay, and then everything I do here on this screen, right now the way I've got this configured is you should be seeing the same thing on this screen right here. So it's just like having two screens that are mirroring each other. So if I can kind of keep them both on the screen at the same time, you can see for yourself, like I'll put this right here. And if I bring up the screensaver, the electric sheep, I'll say yes on that. And this will pull up a screensaver that's, fortunately I can't see the options. If we wait long enough, it kicks on automatically. This is a free download, and it's Tracy's really neat patterns on the screen. Hold on a second, let me find, there's like a test or something here. We'll hit run. And then if we go back to camera 1, you'll see, oh, it's not displaying over there because it's just an open window, I guess. So I guess this isn't a screen duplication, because if it were a screen duplication, I would have to have both screens set to the same resolution. And because this is a much smaller screen, the resolution on this is smaller, so it must be like, there must be side to side. But I can drag this, whoops, I gotta use the right mouse to do this, just to show you how this works. Let's see, let's go back over there. Use the right mouse. There it is. And drag it what, to the right, or does it go to the left? Neither. For Dave? No? So confused. I kind of see, you see what's happening here is the screen resolution is so much bigger on my left screen, because that's set to the video output of 1920 by 1080. But this screen is set to a much lower resolution. So when I moved it over, it's sitting down really low. So I have to go, I have to see this bigger. Hold on a second, bear with me here. Let's see if I can find it. Let me go here. Grab it. So the problem is I'm working in a small window here. So let me make that full screen. There, now I can see. So apparently if we move that up, drag it over. Normally you could put you know, something over there permanently, right? So you'd go through this one time and then it'll remember that position. It gets behind my camera. Oh, I see. Okay. Let me go back to camera input 3. Go full screen on that. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. So normally what I would do is I would drag the window over and then size the window to go full screen. But right now I've got it sitting kind of between two screens, which does get a little confusing. And I'm having trouble with my mouse. There it is. So it's somehow moved over to the right. So what I would do is turn the computer around so I can see the screen. And put the mouse over here. Now let me drag it and make it full screen. That probably makes a lot more sense. Like I could just leave that like that, leave this screen with this pretty little animation, which is constantly random. It's never the same pattern twice. And then I can just use my desktop and, for whatever normal purposes I want to use it for. Now remember, this was more than 10 years ago. Finding computer cases with screens built in is not that difficult today. But back in the day, this was pretty unique. Also, this is a Blu-ray drive that you can see through, and it's reversible. Right now, the door opens on what'll be your left, but it can be turned around so the door can be changed to open on the right. So let's say you place this against a wall or somewhere where the door didn't have enough room to open. It's reversible. So that was thought of as well. You use the same parts. You don't need left-hand parts versus right-hand parts. So he thought that through. There's no frame in this case. Basically, each piece supports each other piece. So if we take all the screws out, we just have a stack of metal pieces. There's nothing in the way as far as a frame goes that can get in your way. And at the same time, there's also not much in the way of ventilation to bring air in, other than just the back area, the PCI ports in the back, where you would use a blower-style video card for that reason. But I haven't had any heat-related problems. It's more of an anxiety than it is a real-world problem. And I assure you, if it was a real-world problem, he would have redesigned this. So the reason why it doesn't have any apparent air input is it doesn't require it. Even when overclocked and gaming for hours and hours, it doesn't have any heat problems. So that's what I'm told from the creator. And I personally haven't experienced any heat problems either. It's actually running very, very cool. If we want to take a look at the specs on this, if I right-click, sorry, wrong mouse, back over here. Let's right-click on the Start menu and go to System, just to revisit our specifications. Let me go full screen over here for a second. It's a little hard for me to see. Let's just move this out of the way. Put it over here somewhere. And this is 1.82 terabytes. So we have a 2 terabyte Gen 3. I think it's a Samsung. Yeah, there's the Samsung Magician software. So the Samsung 970 EVO 2 terabyte. So Gen 3, of course, that was 9th gen Intel, so Gen 4 wasn't available yet. We've got 32 gigs of RAM. It's borrowing 128 gigs for the onboard video built into the CPU. CPU is an i9-9900KS, the flagship 9th gen, fastest one that Intel ever came out with on the i9, and it's 5 gigahertz, which is why it says 5 gigahertz embedded right into this custom-made piece. It's another reason why I don't want to upgrade it, right? I mean, even now we can find more and more 5 gigahertz CPUs available. This was, I believe, the first one to hit that. And we are running Windows 11 Pro 25H2. And it's perfect. Like there's nothing at all wrong with it. The biggest issue that I have with it is I don't have anything to put it to work to do. So it's mostly just like a beauty queen, but she's got all the power and all the capability. I haven't found a purpose to take advantage of it, unfortunately. And that's the biggest problem I have with running through the number of computers that I get to review and build on the channel is, how many can one person use? So it doesn't mean there's anything against any particular machine because you don't see it here regularly. But when you do see a machine here for 10 plus years, there's something special about it, because that's pretty rare that I'll keep a computer that long. In fact, We still have the Nuka-Cola build from the Fallout NZXT case. We still have the spaceship. We still have the tube. We still have the cube. We still have the original Threadripper community build. This was also a community build initially, where we were asking for the community to help us to pay for the parts for it. We did this all free of any sponsorships. This was all done by the community. And as it got upgraded and then this piece was added, it becomes even more special to me. So this isn't for sale. It'll never be, maybe when I'm dead, I don't know, but there's no plans to ever sell this. This is as much a piece of the channel as I am. And I would say that's true of the original Threadripper build, which is still at Studio A, so that if I do want to broadcast over there, we do have cameras and capture cards so we can get back online if there was a complete catastrophic loss of Studio C, say the place burned down or the town was evacuated. We could just go over to Studio A and get right onto our regular broadcast schedule. I talk about backups, and it's not just for data. There's backups for pretty much, you know, there's not just one thing to eat in the refrigerator. I have other things to eat. So if something goes bad or I'm not in the mood, I think of that as like having backups. So I'm never placed into a situation where I don't have choices. Choices cost a little extra money, but with that, with these choices, it keeps me in business, right? Versus not only losing everything, but then also losing income. That's a double whammy that's very difficult to recover from in any business. So yeah, I still have to get back with the owner to figure out, I'm sure he's already got this programmed, or I need to sit down and figure it out. It's just an informational text display. So some of you might have been wondering whatever happened to it. It's been here the whole time, just off to the side, just a wallflower. Looking here in the chat to see if we're missing any comments or questions. Andy says that is an impressive box. It's definitely unique. You know, it's, if you want something exclusive, it doesn't get much more exclusive than this other than just handcrafting it yourself. And believe me, there's so many hours put into this design. It wasn't like he cranked it out on the first try and everything worked. And these blocks of aluminum that he's milling out to create every piece out of a solid block of aluminum. Every single piece started as a solid block of aluminum. So there's multiple blocks of aluminum, plus the CNC machine knowing how to program it, then test fitting it, polishing it, anodizing it. You might think this case at $2,000 is expensive, but I can tell you, you should try building one. Just get the bare aluminum blocks, and you're into it for a couple $100 just for the raw material. Then if you buy the screen, the Blu-ray drive, and then the programming and the rental or lease of a CNC machine, you're going to be so far past that number. So the only way that that works is either you already have this equipment because of the line of work. If you're a machine shop, you might already have it. This becomes like a fun little side project. Or you're selling these things and you're intending to make a profit to pay for all the equipment, time investment, research and development, and testing that needs to go into it. Even like I said, a small imperfection in the machining, the anodization won't stick. You'll always have a spot there. You can't sand it down. There's nothing you can do. You just melt down the aluminum and go again. And if you don't have the capability of melting down the aluminum yourself, you're probably going to trade it back into whoever you're buying your blocks of aluminum from, so that that company will obviously pay you less for it in return, including all the shavings that come out of the CNC machine. And they'll just smelt it all back down and form it into another block and sell it back to you. It gets very, very expensive. And then, you know, the end result is what you see. And I don't know if I can turn around and show you the back of this if my cables will reach, but we got 4 PCI slots back there. I can turn this around. Let me move that over here. And so the video card we've got, I think, is a 2-slot card. This already has Wi-Fi built into the board. You can kind of see the lighting happening right underneath here. And you know, even this piece here was custom built, this black piece. I think it looks fantastic. Also, the black goes really well with the blue or the red, right? They make this in blue, red, and black. So this with the black case or the red case or the blue version of the case, I don't think you can go wrong. Plus, it just so happens that that black matches the I/O plate on the motherboard, and the Seasonic power supply is also black. It all ties in really super nice. So we've got the what looks like the Corsair logo, and yeah, the Kraken Advanced Liquid Cooling, and then this plate here that kind of sticks out with the Intel logo, and it says 5 gigahertz. And then engraved are the tentacles from the octopus on each side. This guy's an artist. He's an engineering artist. If you could, instead of using a paintbrush, that you're using a CNC machine, and you know, whatever program he's using for CAD, that is as art as any statue or painting I've ever seen, and it stands unique to this day. Nobody's got anything anywhere close to this, and that's why it's very special to me and why we've held on to it. I'm hoping, as I've been hoping, one day something will change where this will have a purpose here in the studio and we can finally put it to work. Unfortunately, the day never came, but it'll continue to wait patiently until its name is called up to be put to work. That's the status of it. Film Man Take One, which I think is Mitch. Is that Mitch joining us in the chat? Lagrinia said, I sent Carey some special Coca-Cola during the Xynos build. Did you? I can't remember. So the original Xynos build, I want to say it was more than 10 years ago. I know we weren't live at that time, so it had to be before 2017. We've had this a long time. Yeah, Film Man Take One is Mitch, because he's got a dad joke. Why do bananas wear sunscreen? So they don't peel. Ba-dum-bum. It looks like, so the machine that Mitch and I built, was it last Friday? That literally just arrived to the client, hopefully in one piece. And I told the client, if you want the second computer, because remember, this client bought 2 from me at the same time. He wanted them to be twins. He wanted a backup. So he wanted to hold on to one of the machines while I upgraded one, and then when he gets the upgraded one, which he just received today, he can get it settled in and configured, and assuming he's good with it, then send me the second one. And I said, okay, look, if you're serious about wanting to send me that second one next, whenever that is, you probably want to get the parts now, because the prices are going up and the parts are getting harder to find. And he said, okay, no problem. And this week we did receive the exact same parts, the same power supply, motherboard, the same RAM, the same storage, and the CPU just came in yesterday. So those are your 5 components. When he gets the second one boxed up and shipped out, if Mitch is up for it and wants to do the exact same thing again, it is part for part exactly the same build. And you know, whenever we do a new build, it's always a little bit of a learning curve with the combination of parts. So in a perfect world, I would be able to do it twice. Once for a live video and then once for like a pre-recorded video. Rather than editing everything in the live video, I could just build it again with all the proper expectations that that particular combination of parts requires, and it would be a much smoother process. When Bob Ross would do his paintings on television, he always did 3 of them. He did one to show the producer, this is what I want to do today. And then he did one as sort of a general, let's start filming. And then he did the third one as a way to, once again, get another angle from a camera with close-ups. So they're all 3 the same, but each one is hand-painted, so there's very slight variations. And that was the standard practice. So for every single video that you're watching, there's a good chance if it's been edited, it had been filmed 2 or 3 times. In fact, I went to Hollywood and I saw some television shows being made. And at the time, I saw 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen, and they did every scene 2 times. Sometimes they had to do it more than that if they screwed up. So if they got all their lines and hit all their marks correctly, even if it was perfect, they had to do it again, and you in the audience were expected to laugh as though you heard it for the first time. And it didn't matter how good they got it, they always had to do it twice. Then in the editing room, they take whichever of those scenes the director determines are the ones that get the go-ahead, the green light to be in the final edit. You end up with probably whatever the show length is. If it's 22 minutes, you probably end up with an hour and a half of footage that you've got to cut out 2/3 of it. And it's very time consuming and it's a lot of work. So what I like about doing this live is that we can get through a lot more things. Instead of working on one video that I can publish every 4 days, I could publish 4 different videos, from a router to a build to an upgrade to a repair, day after day after day after day, because I was trying to keep up without hiring anybody. And I wanted to make as much content over everything I had to do and show you the variety of work that I get. Now things have slowed down. Now it would be entirely possible for me to have the time to sit down and edit, but I don't like watching myself say the same things over and over to then figure out, okay, this is where I have to cut and then splice it and then play it back and make sure that it flows naturally, that there's not a big jump cut that cuts me off mid-sentence, or all the things that go along with editing. Some people love editing. I'm not one of them. So it's just better for me if I could just shoot the whole thing again. Now that we've done it and it's fresh on my mind, let's do it again. And I had this discussion when I was working representing Newegg, and they barely had the money or the budget to do one build, but they wanted it scripted. I said, you can't script this unless we build it off camera first. Then we have to order all the same parts and do all the unboxings all over again. And then after I would leave, they would take the boxes and the parts and put them on a turnstile into another room that was all white with all these lights, and they'd get their close-up rotating shots of the components as I was talking about them. The amount of work that you as viewers may not appreciate, but all these people are getting paid. Where you've got the lighting person, the camera person, the editor, the producer, the director. All these people are getting paid to put together a video, which, some of those videos got 1 million views, but still 1 million's a pretty low number compared to if we did that on traditional television, even in the middle of the afternoon. You'd probably get more than 1 million viewers just in the United States. So to me, it's a really poor investment. Unless you really love doing that kind of work and you're not really chasing the views, you don't care if only 5 people see this thing you put 100 hours into or 1,000 hours into it, you'll never get that money back. It's very unlikely. What you did is worth a lot more than what your free views are going to earn from it. And so by shooting live, I find it's much faster for me to get more content out more frequently, rather than making a polished television show, or more often than not a commercial. And more people are just watching commercials on YouTube. They'll skip past the ads so they can watch the commercial. But that's their choice. If that's how they want to earn a living and they don't mind doing it, maybe they love it. It's not my cup of tea, but finding the genuine and authentic videos of real people doing real work, it's hard to find here on YouTube. But hopefully it'll turn around and make a comeback. There'll be a generation that says, hey, We're tired of seeing all this scripted, polished stuff. We get enough of that on TV or on streaming services. We want some authenticity on YouTube, and maybe that's a trend that'll pick up. YouTube's banning all the AI videos. If it's all AI, there's a good chance YouTube's shutting the channel down, because YouTube understands that the AI videos are very low quality, and the sponsors don't want their products, you know, the ones that run ads, they pay YouTube to run ads. They don't want their ads running next to some low quality, lazy effort video. They don't want their product associated with that. And so YouTube's losing money because of what we call AI slop. And it's okay to use AI as long as you say there's a checkbox, so a flag will come up when you click on the video that says this video was used making, you know, with AI. But a lot of people aren't doing that. They're trying to fool people. And you know, you'll see it. It's really low quality, terrible. And the problem is they got flooded with so much AI content at YouTube. They were getting over 1 million videos, brand new AI videos, every day. Like, it was just insane. Well, there goes the screensaver kicking on to the main screen, which I think you'll see here in a minute. But let me just move the mouse and keep that from coming on. So basically, YouTube said, we got to do something about this, because what's happening is, for every one real video that a person like me is standing in front of a camera, even if it's a commercial, what a real content creator is making, they were getting like 2 or 3 to 1 AI videos. And if that wasn't stopped, it would be 10 to 1, it'd be 100 to 1, it'd be 1,000 to 1. And they'd be covered in these crappy, low quality AI videos, drowning out all the real content and creators that are sincere and earnest, and they would just be just completely covered. And so the algorithm would have a really hard time sorting through that much content and fairly giving everyone a chance, because if it's 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 on the AI side, there's 99 times out of 100 the algorithm's going to pick one of the AI videos instead of an actual content creator. So I'm glad to see YouTube's putting their foot down on that. How they enforce it, we'll see, but it's, you know, you can do AI well, but that's not what people are doing. People are taking the laziest way and letting the AI do the talking, letting the AI make the video. They don't come up with any script. They just copy like product images off of websites along with the product descriptions, and they plug that into the AI video creator, and it automates it. They upload it to YouTube, and they turn monetization on. So they're very, very, very low quality. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And I guess YouTube very quickly had enough of this. Like, this hasn't been going on maybe 6 months. So I'm glad to see them responding and putting their foot down, going, it ain't going to play here. So we'll see how if their actions match their words, because it's making it harder and harder to be a real person. There's only one of me, but there can be an infinity supply of AI. So that's not a battle I can win unless the company starts policing that. It's surprising now that you can find content creators that are well-known Hollywood celebrities that have been making videos I never saw. Kevin Nealon from Saturday Night Live, for the last 7 to 10 years, he's been hiking in the wilderness while doing an interview with one of his celebrity friends, somebody he knows in the industry. And I said, this is really different. This is really interesting. He's just walking with a selfie stick. He's got no crew. He's got no camera operator. Selfie stick and a phone. And there's no makeup artist. There's no agenda. Just 2 people walking, taking a hike. And he's interviewing them while they're doing it. And since I found it, now it's the algorithm's offering me more and more. And I'm like, holy cow, this was done 7 years ago. And you think somebody who has some clout in Hollywood, Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars and Riddick, I mean, she's done darn near every science fiction show, has quite a following, and yet you may not know she has a YouTube channel, and she brings on people she's worked with to, basically it's a video podcast, right, to talk to them. And now Jonathan Frakes and Data What's his name? I just thought of it. They have a podcast now. But even with their celebrity, it is still very difficult for them to find an audience. If you look at their view numbers, you think, wow, you know, I might be getting more views than them. They're way better known than I am. But the problem is, unless you know to go specifically looking and searching for that, the algorithm it's so overwhelmed with content right now, it may never recommend that, or it may take years for it to recommend it to you. Brent Spiner, yeah, that's data. Thank you, Terrell Cochran. Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes just kind of sitting down, chatting it up. And other people that were really popular, I don't really see them anymore. Guys like Mark Rober, where did he go? Mr. Beast, I never see anything from him anymore. Somehow, I know he's making content, I know he's really popular, but the algorithm isn't recommending it, and I don't think to search for it. And instead, I'm getting, you know, I click one video from a guy called Ordinary Sausage, where he takes weird things and sees if he can make it into a sausage, which is a bizarre premise. Some of the stuff is just a bad idea. He'll take crayons, grind up the crayons and mix it in with some pork meat, put it into a casing and cook it up and see what it tastes like. As long as it's not toxic, he'll try it. And the videos are relatively quick and they're pretty funny. And now the recommended videos are the last however many years he's been doing this, his entire library, video by video. Like, could I see something else? I like it, don't get me wrong. There's only so many of those I want to watch in any given evening. Maybe ask me tomorrow. So the algorithm is just delivering more of what you're clicking on and what you're searching for. And if it's something you never searched for, there may be some great content out there that's been out there for years that you're completely unaware of because you didn't know to search for it and the algorithm didn't recommend it. Part of that reason is because of the shorts content, because this also diluted the value of traditional long-form content creators such as myself, where the screen that would come up with the recommendations used to all be videos, standard long-form video. Now more and more YouTube is taking a couple of those lines dedicated to shorts content, which, by the way, YouTube loses money on every single time. And the content creators who make them are spending so much time and effort in editing just to earn back a few pennies. It is, I don't know how that's going to sustain in the future. That's just, every once in a while you can get a short video that does well. There's recently a girl that posted, just an ordinary person on TikTok making short videos, who said, I've got a great theme for Dr. Pepper. And then she sang this little theme for about 8 seconds, just a quick little thing. And after a month, it had, I don't know, 14 million views. Dr. Pepper saw that. And during the college football game, which is some pretty high dollar advertising, big college football game, made the commercial featuring her theme song that got viral, which is incredibly, it's a very simple theme song, but it's genuine and it's sincere. She wasn't paid to make this. She just said, hey, I've got a great theme song for Dr. Pepper. It'll go like this. And then she sang it. For whatever reason, that caught traction. Dr. Pepper found out about it, said, let's make an ad. They put that ad together quickly. And other companies are saying, hey, make a theme song for us now. And sometimes, you know, she had no idea that was going to happen. And all the other videos she's ever done, the only reason I even was aware of it wasn't because it was ever recommended to me, but because other news-related content that I watch mentioned how, like Good Morning America said, this TikToker went viral, and now the song she came up with is being used in a Dr. Pepper commercial, and Dr. Pepper says she's fantastic and we're going to work with her again. And other companies are like, do me, do me. I love hearing good news coming from the internet instead of all this scammer stuff and you know, be careful of this and watch out for that. It's nice that there's some good stories out there. It does happen, but it's like winning a lottery. So basically, if you're doing what you love and you're really not expecting much back from it, it's fun. But if you have bills to pay and you're doing it full time and you're counting on your ability to earn a living to do this full time, I hope you've got a financer, or I hope that you've already been doing it part time long enough that you can generate the revenue to be able to continue doing what you enjoy doing. Because at the end of the day, we all have bills to pay. And so the focus has to be, first and foremost, you got to pay the bills. Otherwise, you won't have any place to broadcast from. And I get inspired by a lot of the simplistic, low-cost video, like Kevin Nealon can walk around with a selfie stick and interview celebrities while taking a hike in the woods. That's got to be a very low production cost. But he has his celebrity where people could discover him. If it was me doing it, I'd have to be interviewing somebody who was well known in order for the general public to find me. Otherwise, those videos would have very, very minuscule views if it's just me interviewing another industry professional that isn't a household name. The likelihood of you finding it, of whether you searched for that, very unlikely, or if you were to get it offered by the algorithm as a suggestion, is very unlikely. And with the advent of AI, just imagine that 10 times worse, and that increment getting bigger, 11 times, 12 times, 30, as millions of videos are just cranked out automatically with the push of a button. And like I said, I'm happy to see YouTube take at least some of the things YouTube is doing are on the right path. I disagree with most of it, but you know, hopefully they'll get there in time. Andy says at least the paid reviews ought to be done by a human. Well, but that's the thing. Sometimes you can't really tell, and other times the human won't show their face or use their name. So all you're getting is a puppet show. You're just getting hands and a voiceover. Is that still human? How can you be sure? Gregory Howard joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Gregory. Carey says trigonometry is 2 UK comedians doing a UK podcast. 2 UK comedians doing a YouTube podcast. So I like Kill Tony. That's a hilarious YouTube. It's done in live with an audience, but it's also broadcast on YouTube, edited. And it's comedians insulting each other, which I think is fantastic. I like insult comedy. I kind of feel like your willingness and eagerness to laugh is directly related to how strong you are mentally. And those of us who lack that inner strength are the ones that are offended. And that tells me all I need to know about somebody. It's like, okay, you know, if the world ever became feral, they cannot survive. They don't have the inner strength to survive. And that may be ridiculous because you might say, well, what are the odds that's going to happen? Hey, the world is chaos and tomorrow isn't guaranteed. If at any time something should happen and you're not prepared for it, only the strong are going to survive. And one of the ways that I can tell somebody is strong is their willingness to laugh at just about anything. Somebody's ability to be offended by something intended to make them laugh also tells me all I need to know about that person. So that's what I've learned in all these years and trying to figure out why are some people falling out of their chair laughing and why are some people complaining. And it's the difference in their constitution and who they are. And I respect the strong, right? I don't have any respect for the weak. Now, somebody might be weak for a good reason. You know, they might have a disability of some sort. That's a different story because there's plenty of people with disabilities that are very, very their constitution is very strong. In fact, on the Kill Tony, they have a couple of disabled comedians that are the funniest people I have seen in a long time doing like improvisational comedy and, you know, interacting with the audience. And I can't think of their names. There's a girl in a wheelchair. She's freaking hilarious. And there's a guy who has cerebral palsy and he can't speak, so he has to type everything into his phone. And I think he is one of the funniest comedians I've ever seen. Also, and there's another comedian with cerebral palsy, Josh. I can't think of his name. He's got really long hair. He is hilarious. There's also Brad. He's a dwarf comedian, and talks about the daily challenges he has and what people will come up and say to him and stuff. And he does it with such a great sense of humor that it's refreshing to me to hear that honesty, but also to have the attitude that it's so absurd sometimes what people say to him that he points it out and he laughs at it too. He's like, how absurd is this? Can't think of his name. Brad. If you get a chance to see any of these folks, they are hilarious. Oh, here we go. Here in the chat, Brad Williams is the dwarf comedian. Josh Blue is one of the comedians with cerebral palsy. And over on Kill Tony, the point is not to promote these guys for the sake of promoting them, but to say you can be strong and not have big muscles. You can be strong here, and the way you can tell that in somebody is whether or not they laugh, especially at like roasts or insult humor, that they can laugh at themselves and understand the intent is to insult you so much that it's funny, right? Not to insult you in a mean and nasty way, but to insult you in a way that, one of the things on Kill Tony is the comedian with cerebral palsy comes out and he's typing into his phone to talk. And he says, Tony Hinchcliffe, who's the host of the show, he goes, I always looked up to Tony as another disabled comedian, only to find out, the way he said it was that Tony was disabled, and Tony is not disabled. So the fact that he said, I've always looked up to you as another disabled comedian, you set the bar for me, which I thought was hilarious. It was just a great line. And again, it's not intended to hurt anybody's feelings. It's intended to make somebody laugh. And boy, that worked for me. I was like, yeah, right on. Nice. Found out you were faking being disabled the whole time. Intro Jan Sport said, I have cerebral palsy too. I've learned long ago if you can laugh at yourself or make others laugh, you can handle anything in your day. Absolutely. It's basically armor. It makes you kind of bulletproof against bullies and jerks, right? Metaphorically bulletproof. To just be this raw nerve that anybody can poke at and get a reaction out of you. Why would you voluntarily choose to live that way? I am a victim. Like, you're not going to stop people from doing what they're going to do, but you can choose how you want to respond to it. That's entirely up to you. Anyway, I watch a lot of comedy, and I can always tell, because not all comedians have that strength either. Some comedians are a little too gentle, where they're not funny at all. They're just like, I'm bored. I'm like, geez, I could go on stage and do a better job than that person. I admire they had the guts to get up and do it, but I don't think they were edgy enough for my personal taste. But there's other comedians that are so offensive, that are just a whole nother level. Anthony Jeselnik is one of the single most offensive comedians working today. I cannot get over just how wrong the things he says are. And yet I have never laughed harder in my life. Ricky Gervais is another one. He's going to tell you how it is, and he'll do it with a little twist and a little George Carlin-esque kind of truth in it, which is funny, but it's not as outrageous as what Anthony Jeselnik does, because what he's doing, I couldn't even repeat here. I'd probably get banned on YouTube because it'd be too sensitive or too much for some sensitive people. But it's good to see him succeed and do well, because that kind of comedy typically doesn't work that well today. But man, if I had an opportunity to see him live, I would definitely take him up on it. Frank Jimmy says hello and joins us here in the chat. Yeah, Josh Blue, he is hilarious. Brad Williams is hilarious. All right, so this is the Xynos build, just kind of getting back to that. And once again, there's the inside. needs a little cable management, but I think I was postponing this, well, primarily because I kept upgrading it. I was never happy. Every time something got finished, something new came out, and I felt like this was deserving. But now, you know, I finally got to the point of programming the screen, and I thought it would be easy. It's very confusing for me, and I just haven't reached out to the creator. He's probably already got a little file I can put on there that's programmed. I never really thought much of it. I thought there was a program that's already written and you just tell it what you want it to display. No. But he must have something. And then that way this will have some text. Text I don't care about. CPU temperature and stuff like that is silly. But what else are you going to do with it? And that's the beauty about being able to program it, is it's a question that you could uniquely answer for something that's of interest to you. Maybe you want to see sticker price of stock prices. Example. There's that screensaver happening right now on the main window there, and you'll notice when it did that, it shut this one off for some reason. So let me go back to full screen here on camera 1, and let me move the mouse, and I'm sure that that comes back on. Yeah, it does. I think the reason that's happening is because I have the app open. If I close the app, whatever this screen does, the screen you're seeing should do. They should be like in a duplication mode. But like I said, with the smaller screen having a much lower resolution. So if I have something open this big and then I move it to that window, you're only going to see the bottom third of it. And that's something to keep in mind if you're attaching a secondary monitor that's smaller. Ideally, when you're adding monitors to a system for practical use, you want them all to be the same resolution. They don't necessarily have to be the same size, but you definitely want them to support the same resolution. Or you run into these kind of problems where you're dragging a window that's right, let's say right here, but when it hits the other screen, it's up over here because of the resolution. And it throws off your mouse pointer, because your mouse pointer was here a minute ago. When you dragged it to the border, now suddenly your mouse pointer is up here because of the zoomed in resolution. All right, so let me turn this off. So we're going to go back over to this computer and we'll shut it down unless anybody has any other questions about it. It's whisper quiet. I mean, I'm right next to it. My microphone is practically leaning into it. I bet you don't hear a thing because I don't hear a thing. And because there's no ventilation on the case, essentially, outside of the venturis on the top and the PCI slots in the back, the power supply fan has to face up. There's no ventilation at the bottom. So if I give you one more look at it here, you'll see the power supply is installed upside down with the fan on top. If we turn the power supply around the other way, much like a lot of Thermaltake cases, there's no ventilation at the bottom. And you don't want to do that. You would suffocate your power supply if you did that. So if I come back over here and see, I should probably move this back. Turn this around for a second. See, now I'm trying to find the mouse. There it is on that little tiny screen, so I can drag this back over. And then I'll close it, because wherever you close it is likely where it's going to open next time. And then I'll go ahead and hit shut down here. There we go. And then while that is shutting down, we'll talk next about this little InWin case. So the folks over at Minis Forum had sent me a mini ITX motherboard. It's basically a mobile on desktop design, meaning the chips that are on these Minis Forum mini ITX motherboards are designed for laptops and mini PCs. And somebody at Minis Forum said, well, why can't we just build the motherboard as a standard ITX or micro ATX so that people can install them? You can use SO-DIMM RAM, which is cheaper than regular desktop RAM. The chip is soldered in. They have Wi-Fi, and the parts cost less money than on, let's say, a traditional desktop like this. Like, we spent a lot of money to do this. On the other hand, by comparison, this is a lot cheaper. And half the work's done for you, in a sense. So with Minis Forum, they give you the heatsink on top of the CPU, but no fan. It's up to you to pick what fan you want to use. So let me move this aside. We'll fire this up and I'll show you what this looks like. And again, when I'm doing these builds, I'm looking to do something different. Anybody can do Corsair and NZXT and Thermaltake and all the other big ones, right? The popular case manufacturers. And you can have the same thing as the next guy, right? There's no challenge in that. And I don't find it particularly interesting. Look, I have a Tesla. Yeah, I see Teslas everywhere, so what? Show me something different. So that's when I found this InWin case. And what I like about it is that it's got feet on the bottom, but it also comes with a cradle. And you can set it into its cradle. I guess either way, you could put it in this way, or you could put it in that way. It's got a little power supply that we put in there, which uses a laptop style plug right there, like a, forgot the name of this power supply format. It's small form factor, or it has a name, it's eluding me. And then this is the back of the Minis Forum motherboard, which you can see already has Wi-Fi and Ethernet, all our USB, display port, USB Type-C, a couple of Type A's back there. And as I mentioned, you can set this down into its cradle if you want to have the machine vertical. It's a nice clean build, because if you're going to use it for like home theater or something like that, you don't want to draw a lot of attention. This is the opposite. This is, you know, hey, look at my PC. This is, you could look right at it and not even realize you're looking at a computer, except if you see it from the top. You can look in and you'll see the RAM light up because we put RGB RAM, and you'll see the fan. Although with these Noctua fans, it's a little tricky because they have these supports that are behind the fan. They look like the fan blades aren't turning. But the other thing that's tricky about this case, I need to bring it up to the camera so you can appreciate. Somebody just turning this on is highly unlikely. Do you see a power button? Take your time. If I hold it at just the right angle, you might see the power button. And come around the side, we'll come around the back. Come around the other side. Power button? Anybody? Here's the bottom. Here's the top. Depending on how you want to orient that. Put it this way or this way. I'm looking right at it, and I can just barely make out. Power button right there. See it now? It's tricky. Tricky. So this does have a soldered on mobile processor. In this case, it'll be an AMD. I can't remember specifically, but it's part of that whole particular motherboard model number. So when Minis Forum manufactures these, you're not going to share the same model number between different chips. The chip is part of the model number, and the chip is a part of the motherboard. You cannot remove it. So let's put our keyboard and mouse back in, and then we'll plug internet into that. And then we'll plug our HDMI capture card into it. And then I need the laptop style power plug, right? That 3-prong Mickey Mouse cloverleaf style, which I have right here. Now this power supply does not have an on-off switch on the back of it. Some do, some don't, especially when you get to these real small ones. And then if we want to turn this on, I have to find that darn power switch again, which I can see now right there. You'll see a blue light comes on right next to the power switch. And as this turns on, it's really hard to see that Noctua fan spinning. What you're looking at are the little plastic supports, part of the frame. The blade itself is spinning so fast you don't even see it. Also, you don't hear it. I'm not a fan of that Noctua color, but you know, people who know what it is. And when that turns on and initializes, we will probably see the RAM start to light up here. Did I missed anything? It is on, right? I didn't turn it off, did I? Yeah, it's booting. So it's getting there. Now this one isn't anywhere near as old as this one, so this is a much newer generation. I think this is 2 or 3 years old at this point. This one's about 6 years old with the parts, and then the parts it had before that and before that, you know, goes back well over a decade. But they still manufacture these. Let me jump over to HDMI 1. Let's make sure this is booting. I'm surprised I don't see the RAM lit up. So let me jump over there. Oh yeah, we're already on the desktop. So my question is, where is the... Where's my RAM? I would expect it to light up. I wonder if there's a piece of software that I've installed to control the lighting. Not that you'd have to have RGB RAM, obviously. It just kind of stands out. Let me, let's go back over to this desktop and let's see how this is configured. Let's see, we'll go full screen over here. So what we've got in this build, if we go to the Start menu, right-click, and go to System. This is a Ryzen 7 7745HX. So if you said, wow, I've never heard of that chip, that's because it's a mobile chip. It would be used in laptops and mini PCs. This is not a chip you can buy. You have to get it already installed on a board. 32 gigs of RAM, and we're running a 2 terabyte. I don't know what, let's see, it's a Windows 11 25H2. I updated it last night with the latest AMD Adrenalin software and AMD chipset software. And if you're curious, if you can't remember what manufacturer of drive you have, you can always just go to the C drive here. If we go to this PC right here, right click on the C drive, go to Properties, and then click the Hardware tab. It should tell you who makes it. So this is a Feijing S880. There you go. Okay. Now I don't know if we had some software on here for RGB or not. I'd swear this had RGB in it, but I'm not seeing it light up. And normally with RAM, it just lights up unless you manually have turned it off with some software. So I'm wondering now if I had switched the RAM out of it, if it's still RGB RAM. I can't really see in there. Let me get a flashlight and take a look. So the very thing that makes this case nice is how subtle it is. And putting RGB RAM in it is not so subtle. I think the RAM I've got in here let's see. Can't really see it. I believe this is SODIMM laptop memory. I think. I do see 4 slots, which is pretty unusual for laptop memory. But if it's laptop memory, you're not going to find it in RGB. And if that's the case, then I think the thumbnail that Mara did would be inaccurate. But before I make any false accusations, I could swear I built this with RGB RAM, but I'd have to kind of open it up and take a look inside or go back and play the video. Now, if you're curious about these original build videos, or at least the version of the build video that contains the 9th gen, what we've got now, and the version, well, there's only one, of this build video with the InWin B1 case, we have made those videos public again, so people that are not members can watch them. And the links for this build and this build are in our video notes below today's video, in the video description. They won't be public forever, but probably for, you know, about a month or so, we'll give people a chance if you've missed those builds or you want to go back and rewatch them. Morton Bob said the case looks like something out of the 20s, painted retro teal. It would fit right in with a Bakelite rotary phone. Yeah, they did use a lot of that stuff. 60s especially too. It looks like somebody here in the chat could see the power button. That, you know, for me, I had a hard time finding the power button when I first pulled this back out to turn it on last night. I'm like, I remember it was hard to find, and I just couldn't remember. I knew it was one of these ridges, but I couldn't, like, I'm feeling for it. I can't even feel it. It's so smooth. And I had to really look at it close. Then I saw it. Once again, this thing is whisper quiet. You don't hear it at all. I guess that's thanks to both the power supply fan being a good fan and that Noctua cooler. Despite that ugly color combination, they do make a good fan. Overpriced in my opinion, but it's a good fan. Ugly fan in my opinion, but it's a good fan. So when we buy the Minis Forum motherboard, it's up to us to buy a case, power supply, and cooling fan, and storage, and RAM, right? It's bare bones unit. And that's how this build came about, is I was looking on Amazon, trying to find a case I hadn't really seen anybody build with before. Again, if I can't make original content, why bother? And that's when I stumbled on the case. We have no cooperation and no dialogue with the folks at InWin. So it's not like they sent us the case for free or anything like that. This was all funded by the viewers, as was this one. And then back in the day, the advertising that YouTube, the commercials that YouTube will play that I don't, you know, they break up my video with ads. That's mostly all YouTube getting paid. But back in the day, that was enough to earn a living from, but not anymore, unfortunately. Times have changed. But for that reason, we have a bunch of older content, more than a year old, that's in our archive that is available to all the members. They can go back and watch any of the videos we've made in the past. But for the free viewers, we're limiting that because we want to encourage people to support us. Without the support, we don't have a channel anymore. The advertising model doesn't work. And if you just keep taking things that are free, if you're like, hey, as long as it's free, I'll take it, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but it's not sustainable. Whatever that thing is that's free, it will go away. At some point, somebody, what you have to understand is somebody's paying for it. If it's not you, somebody else's money. And that somebody else's money used to be advertisers. And it still could be today if I wanted to show myself out to corporations that'll give me a script, tell me what I'm allowed to tell you, tell me how to say it, tell me to publish it by a certain date, make sure they see it and approve it before I show it to you, and they'll write me a nice fat check. But then how could you ever believe anything I ever say again is truly coming from me and not from the words of somebody writing a paycheck? The only way this works is for the viewers to support it now, because the advertisers, they're still there, but they're paying about 90% less per ad. 90%. It is a huge, massive drop that amounts to making, you know, gas money. So I want you to know that all those folks you see in green that join us in our chat room, they're proud members of the channel, without whom this video would not happen anymore. The financials of it don't make any sense unless you have somebody financing you, or you're just independently wealthy and having a good time. The one thing I can say about the celebrities that have their own channels is I would imagine most of them have quite a bit of money in the bank and they're just doing it for fun. I do this for fun too, but I also, I still have to make a house payment and insurance and buy food and gas and clothes and go to the doctor and the dentist and get a haircut and all the expenses all of us have. You know, no one's providing any of that to me. So if I can combine doing what I love and also earning a living from it, I love it. But to watch the change happen on YouTube, to watch it start to die, because I said it in the very first video I ever did, as long as these remain free, they won't be around forever. Somebody's paying for it. And at some point, somebody's going to run out of money and the video goes away. And sometimes people have said, oh, it's a shame, you know, that you put some of these videos, locked them up for only paying members. And I'm like, they wouldn't even be here without that. Like, forget it. You go searching for the content, it just would not exist anymore. It's a weird thing to complain about, because the only alternative was to shut it down or to sell it off to a company that wants to buy the channel. I don't know how that would be better, but I don't think people fully understand how this whole thing works, which is unfortunate. It's like you're just expected to get stuff for free indefinitely. Nothing you're getting for free is indefinite. Nothing. It's free for now, but at some point, the person who's paying for it will run out of money. And so just expect that. Don't be surprised when it happens. But when we have viewers supporting us, it's just a very small portion of the number of our viewers that actually support us. That's how little it takes and how rare that is, which is why we have all the friends in green, not all of whom are watching right now, but many people who aren't watching right now are also members who make these videos possible so that they can still be free for everybody else who can't pay for it for one reason or another. And that's how this happens. I don't know how people thought this happened, but some people still think YouTube pays enough money, and they've obviously been, their information is a few years old. So thank you to our members as always. And for the super chats that come in and all your support. We appreciate everybody being here regardless, but there would be no here without somebody footing the bill. That's all. And of course, our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys, that's where I get my Windows and Office license keys for my real life business with my real life customers that I'm not trying to cut corners and play games with for fun. I'm trying to keep their businesses up and running, keep their customers that they have happy with them. Nothing worse than I can't help you today, poor customer, because our systems are down. My goal for my clients is to make sure they never have to call me saying their system's down, and that if something were to happen, we have constant updated backups that we can fall back on should their business be robbed, catch a fire. It's always something that catches people by surprise, and my job is to think of every possibility or to have a solution for any possibility so we can always get the client up and running in a very quick and inexpensive way. So right now, the way I work with my clients is they put me on a retainer and I take care of all their networking needs. And if they have any networking problems, they call me. I don't want them making changes on the network or installing software without checking with me first, because if they do things without telling me and now it takes the whole office down, I don't have a clue what just happened. Then they're sort of tying my hands with the whole point of paying me. So I say, you let me take care of the network. If you have any problems, you call me. Let me set it up, or let me be a part of the decision-making process if you're thinking about buying some new hardware. Get my input from that, because if you don't, I may not be able to support what you bought. I may not be able to help you with it. And if they do all that, then what we end up with is a system that has a 0% data loss guaranteed no matter what. Fire, theft, floods, earthquake, tsunami. We can recover from any disaster, even if it means temporarily setting my client up in a hotel room. We can have them set up in a couple hours with the latest backup and data, and just have all the employees work out of the hotel room until the building is rebuilt or habitable again, or they take some time to find another location. But in the meantime, you've already lost your whole building. If you've also lost your data, you're probably going to lose your employees, because they won't be able to pay their bills and buy their groceries and provide for their families if you don't have the money to pay your employees. And your employees don't have anything to do because the whole office is burned to a crisp or completely robbed. So the setup that I have results in a absolute zero data loss. Any contingency, anything that happens, this one option of contingency we have is we can set them up with some computers. They can loan them from me or rent them from me, and then that buys them time that they can still operate their business. The clients don't know when they call that they all might be in a conference room in a hotel somewhere, or they could be operating out of somebody's house. We can set them up so everybody can work from home if we need to. In order for that to always be ready, there's constant maintenance and constant updates that have to be done at least once a week, and sometimes even daily, depending on the amount of work the client does every day and how many employees they have. And whatever they're paying me is a fraction of nothing compared to what they're going to lose, which means every employee could be without work, the boss could lose their job, and then lawsuits could come in from the clients who aren't getting the services they paid for from that particular client. You don't see a lot of this information on YouTube. Most of the people that do this kind of work don't share this information, primarily because they're tired, right? I don't want to talk about it. I already finished it. I already finished my day, an 8-hour day at work. I don't want to come home and make a video about it for another few hours. I want to clock out, take off my shoes, relax, get a good night's rest, and do the whole thing again Monday through Friday. That's the typical work week, and that's how they pay their bills and provide for their families. So when it comes to providing license keys, like if they're going to buy a computer from me, I'll build it myself. Oftentimes, they're the subject matter of many of the build videos you see here. I need to provide a copy of Windows and Microsoft Office. It's almost ubiquitous. Any business that has Windows probably also has Office. So I needed a source for that to provide that to my customers. And I needed it to be legitimate. I can't just go with these cheap, questionable keys. What you do in your personal life is your business, but when you're responsible for the livelihoods of the business owner and their employees, and for the customers that rely on them for their service, there's a domino effect that doesn't just cause me to lose my reputation in the business. There could be a huge financial liability on my side to everyone who suffered any financial loss as a result of me not doing my job. Sort of like if an ambulance were to pick you up and then break down on the way to the hospital, and now your injury has become worse because of the mechanic not doing the right job on the, there's some negligence on part of the ambulance company. There's a lawsuit in the waiting, and especially if it results in a death that could have been avoided had they gotten to the hospital on time, there's a liability there that doesn't exist if you work on your car in the garage on the weekend. And I try to emphasize that because YouTube paints one picture, which is this is all for home users and all for hobbyists. But it isn't. The whole thing that made it available for you to buy a computer was probably because you had a job. So the whole thing is weird to me because more people have jobs than just have computers. Usually you have the job, and with the job you take the money and you buy a computer for fun. But when you go to work, you're not using the computer at work for fun. So it's weird to me to see so many enthusiast-related videos here on the platform, to the point that it would be very easy for a home user to forget there's a whole world around them that goes to work every day, sits in rush hour traffic every day, sits in front of a computer and does work with it. And if they don't do that work, they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their livelihood, they're not going to be able to provide for their families. It's going to be stressful. And I'm here to bridge that gap, my friends. I'm here to tell you about the other side of computers, the bigger 80% side. Home users make up about 20%, and 80% is made up by business. But on YouTube, I'd say 95% are made up of home users and 5% are business. So the real world is not reflected on this platform, and I'm here to remind you of that, because what we do in business is a good practice for home users. But what most home users do is not a good practice for businesses. There's too much risk, and there's too much saving a penny. Stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime would be kind of the expression, where we're spending so much more in time than we are in just pay a little bit more and then spend less time. I see a lot of Linux fans that will sit there and talk about how superior Linux is, but clearly it's less than 4% of market share. This isn't an insult to Linux. This is not an insult. We're just, look around you and accept reality is all I'm saying. It's great that people want to play with it and have fun with it, and that there are some businesses that use it. But if you want a job and you know how to use Windows, the opportunities for work are much greater. The odds of you finding a job are a lot easier. If you want to specialize in Linux, it's going to be harder to find that job. That job will probably pay better. But to see if you get all your information on social media, it's mostly all coming from enthusiasts. It's not coming from businesses. So I'm just here to remind you, the reality is Windows makes up over 65% of the desktop market share worldwide. That's how terrible it is. All those people that say it's so terrible still use it. Stop it. Pick one or the other. Would you go to a restaurant where you didn't like the food, keep eating there and paying for it? This food's terrible, but I keep coming back and eating it. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
pick a lane. And it's okay, they're allowed to like Linux. It's fine. They're allowed to have their opinion that it's better than Windows. But if you look at the data, 65% of the market share is Windows. So reality is very different if you consider the masses and what the masses are using. And those masses are often using it to earn a living, to provide a livelihood, and to provide a service that even the Linux users are using the services from the companies that use Windows, but they're just oblivious to it. They don't care. It doesn't fit their agenda. They don't talk about it. So I'm here to remind you that no matter how you feel, it doesn't change the world around you. I may not like it when it's raining, or I might love it when it's raining. It doesn't change the fact that it's raining. So if I say, you know, the rain is so far superior, it's a false fact. It's an opinion, and everybody's allowed to their opinions. But oftentimes here on social media, people state their opinions as if they were undeniable, clearly factual statements. But if that were true, then the data would follow, right? And so the data doesn't follow their opinions. They kind of live in their own world for whatever reason, and they're welcome to it. Just be aware of what motivates somebody to say the things they say, and that they are probably only telling you half of the story, right? Their half. There's another side to the story that's up to you. But whatever it is you're hearing, including the stories I tell you, there's another side to it. And if you don't go searching that other side out, you might falsely walk away from that video thinking you have all the information, when in fact you have less than 50% of the information, because the other 50% wasn't volunteered to you. It was omitted for reasons we may never understand. And if you don't go looking for it, then you're under, you know, then this information keeps propagating incompletely. So once we have all the information, then we can decide what's best for our own personal values, budgets, and expectations. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying one side's right and one side's wrong. But if one side says we're the only side and there is no other side, that's what I take issue with. It's as if they don't want you to know because you might choose differently. But if they only paint their side of it as if there is no other side, then you're sort of left with no choice. Like, that's how it is. That's how they choose it to be. And you could choose it to be the other way, but they don't offer that option because that wouldn't be in their benefit. It's a strange psychological thing I see a lot here, and I just want you to be aware of it. John Williams says, I love those professor glasses on you. Yeah, I'm getting old. What can I tell you? I never had to wear glasses, and then age kicked in, and what can you do? Morton Bob said it's less than 4% on desktop. Linux is less than 4%, but on the server side, it's a different story. True. This is true. And on the server side of things, that's not usually what a home user would have. Home user doesn't typically even know what a server is. So we talk about your generic everyday neighbor that lives next to you, across the street from you, your parents, your friends, your family, your cousins. Probably none of them have servers, probably. Unless you hang out with a group of server enthusiasts. Okay. So we're talking about desktop. We're talking about when the vast majority of people on this planet, when they go to work to earn a living, just so I'm clear, most of them are not working on a server. Most of them are not working on a Linux desktop, a Mac. Most of them, and I'm talking around the entirety of this planet that we live on called Earth, the vast majority, 80% or more, who go to work to an office are going to be sitting in front of a Windows computer. Period. If you are a service technician and you're going out to a consumer's house, more consumers are going to have a Windows computer than a Linux computer or a Mac computer. So if you're in the business to earn money, you can earn, if I worked on every Windows computer in the world, I'd never be able to get to it in my lifetime. If I could work on every Mac or every Linux desktop computer in the world, it would be very hard to find the work and I'd be driving a lot. So there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the opportunity for work and to create a living is much harder when the work is harder to find. So it's not a preference, like, yeah, my preference is to stay employed, but whatever is the most popular thing, there's always people that are going to hate it because it's popular. That's what makes it bad. But that's an enthusiast. When you're trying to earn a living, as I'm trying to do, and make a career out of it, for me personally, I don't want to have to spend half of a day trying to find the work. A lot of people don't tell you this, but when you're self-employed, finding the work is as critical as doing the work. And if you can't find the work, there's no work for you to do and you're not going to get paid. That's where advertising comes in that everybody despises. You could have the best restaurant in the world. You could be a professional world-class chef. You put all this money into this restaurant to design it from the ground up with the best appliances and the best pots and pans, the best dining room experience, the best, most customizable and affordable menu. And yet you've got no business because nobody's coming into your restaurant. They don't know it's there because you don't have any money left to advertise. And if you advertise it, people go, oh, it's another ad. I don't want to watch that. That is a tough hill to climb. When you work for somebody else, they've got a job for you to do. They've already got the work. All you have to do is do the work. And that's half of it. When you become self-employed, you're going to have to find the work and then you're going to have to do the work. So finding the work could be difficult if what you're doing is so niche, it's so vertical. You say, I am going to work on Dentrix software for dentists. You can become a specialist and earn a really high hourly rate because not too many people know that skill. But on the other hand, how many dentists are within driving range for you to, to earn a full-time career? Now, maybe if you're in a big city, that's not a problem. But if you kind of live in a smaller city or a village, you're going to be driving a lot to go into town. And, depending on what your expenses are, you may not need to work full-time in a small town. You may only need 2 or 3 dentist customers. On the other hand, if you're in the big city and the expenses are greater, you have a lot more potential clientele that could be your clients as dentists, that the only challenge you're going to have is making them aware that you exist. Say, hey, what are you paying your person now? Why don't you, and sometimes they won't listen to you. They'll say, well, we don't even want to hear what you've got to offer. We like who we've got. And in that case, you have to drop a business card off, say, well, listen, you say that today, but things could change tomorrow. Just put my card away sometime. If things change, give me a call. That's part of being self-employed. You've got to be able to put yourself out there. You've got to be able to know and accept the word no for 90% of the people you talk to, maybe 99%. You might get one yes out of asking 100 people. You just don't be a jerk about it. Just go, well, I understand. You may not be in a situation today. You've already got your solution. But if at any point your solution goes away or you're not happy with them anymore, please keep my card handy and call me for a free quote. I'll come in and see what your needs are and see how I can help you and save you some money. You'd be surprised. It could be months. You don't even remember talking to them. You get a phone call. You came in a few months ago and, at the time we were fine, but now that guy left or he's not showing up anymore or whatever, he or she. Takes time. So again, it's just the kind of information you're not hearing from enthusiasts. They're getting their money from somewhere, and I'd love to know how they got their money. So when the enthusiast is showing you this build, and it's, the Xynos build, let's say, or something, how did you get the money to pay for that? Because if you're working, you probably don't have the time to make the video. I just would love to know, how was that paid for? Maybe it's none of my business, but full transparency would be appreciated because there could be something happening in the background they don't want you to know. For all you might know, Xynos paid me to do this. They didn't, and I'll tell you they didn't. They sent me the case at no cost. Everything else was my expense. And I'm good with it. And that means that when I tell you I like it or I don't like it, I'm not biased and I'm not worried about consequences. In the same way that if you were my customer and I said to you, I would do this differently and I would do that differently and I would take this piece of equipment out and I would rewire that, I'm telling you what I think is best for your scenario and how I would do it. And it's very rare that two technicians will agree on how to do something. I was talking with Jason over at Emerald Computers the other day as we returned some items to them that they very graciously loaned to us. And he had watched a couple of videos where I had some equipment up there, up here on the bench that we were evaluating that we got from Emerald to see what it was and what condition it was in. And he goes, yeah, sometimes I watch you and I think, oh, there's a lot easier way that you can do that. I go, listen, I do the same thing when I watch other content creators. I have a process. I don't cut corners. And for some people who are impatient or they have a different process that I consider to be cutting corners, where they're willing to do something in a way that's a little more trustworthy, that, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not trustworthy. I want to double check and triple check before I hand that off to a customer. And I treat every computer that way, even these machines I'm evaluating that are in the recycle bin. I still am consistent. Everything is treated equally. And for some people, it drives them crazy. Like, why are you going to that level of detail for something that's in the recycle bin? I only know the right way to do it, to put my integrity and my reputation on the line each and every time. And when I handed those computers back, he said, these are pretty much already good to go to sell, right? You've already done all the work. I go, you saw it. And yeah, I probably did it a different way than you would, but it would be pretty unusual to ever run into another technician that also works in the field that says, I would have done it exactly the same way you did. But I don't want to have to support and be responsible for answering the questions and the problems that occur from somebody else's decisions. If you let me make those decisions and you let me reconfigure things the way I feel it should be, then chances are those calls for support will not come in. And if and when they do come in, I'll be able to answer them. I won't have to research it. I know exactly what's there. I know how it's set up. And that's why if they're making changes without telling me, it's like moving the furniture in a house where someone blind lives. It's one of the cruelest, meanest things a customer can do to me. Can you imagine you are visually impaired and somebody decided to move the furniture around? That's practically cruel. It's exactly the same from my perspective. If you're hired me to maintain your network and then you decide you're going to do something yourself and not even so much as tell me, and then 6 weeks later I get a question going, hey, how come this doesn't work? I'm like, well, when did you guys get that? Where did that come from? How come nobody asked me or even so much as included me to just let me know we got a new printer or we got this new whatever? Well, now you've got it and you've been using it. Nobody told me. I'm working remote. So if nobody tells me, I don't know how I'm supposed to answer your question. We got to rewind. Let's go back. Why is this here? How were you guys doing it before you got this? Did something break? Did something change? I need to know. If you're going to call me with questions, I need to know what you're asking me about. And that can sometimes be a little bit of a learning curve for clients that are used to a certain way. And I'm like, well, I'm not your other guy. This is how we do it. You need to just focus on what you do for a living, whatever your business is. If you're a dentist, do dentistry, right? You have a computer problem, you call me. If you need a new printer, call me. If you don't have time to call me and you need a printer right now and you just go get one, then just send me an email and tell me, hey, I just wanted you to know we got a new printer. It's this make and model. We put on there where there's no problems, but just to add it to your notes. That way, if I get any calls about it, I at least know something's, I'm on board with it. Again, these aren't problems you have when you work for somebody else. This is a self-employed issue. And again, something an enthusiast doesn't deal with. I was going to check and see if maybe there's a BIOS update to this board, just out of curiosity, because the last time we tried to update the other Minis Forum board, I did it incorrectly and bricked the motherboard, which I'm still working on in the members only series of videos, trying to figure out if I can desolder the BIOS chip and reprogram it. Minis Forum's already sent me an upgraded board, by the way. So that's just a project for learning, just so I know. And I have been working on it now about 6 weeks, and I'm not making any progress. Also, what was initially a $15 project has become over $200 in tools to replace the BIOS, but business has been slow. $200 isn't a lot of money. I don't anticipate I will offer this in my business. No one's ever asked for this service before. I'm just doing it now because I can, because I'm personally curious. But if I end up breaking the board, or if I've already broken it, or the problem isn't a BIOS, there's no loss other than the $200 I spent on all the tools and the time to learn how to use them. But let's go back over here and let's run CPU-Z on this and see what BIOS version we've got, and we can go to the Minis Forum support website and see if there's a new BIOS version, because I think I know what I did wrong. And if I break this one, I'll just replace it. We'll add it to the stack. When you're learning, you better be very, very cautious if you're learning on something that's critical. On the other hand, you can go to the recycler and pick up some used stuff and experiment. I just had to sneeze, sorry. All right, so let's get back over here and let's run over to full screen for Carey. Here we go. And then I'll grab this mouse. And I don't see CPU-Z on there, so we'll just download it real quick. I want the zip file, which is the portable version. Download now. It's a pretty small application. We'll click that, double click on the 64-bit. I guess we'll extract everything first. It might run within the zip, but we'll just extract it to be safe. Now we'll run that and let it analyze our system specs. We'll close everything out. That's the clutter. Okay, a little bit about the processor. I'll hit the main board tab, and we've got this, oops, version 1.05. So which board is this? This is a Minis Forum. Got the motherboard box here. Let's go to Minis Forum support. And product help. Okay, what board is this? It's like a BD770i, as I recall. Right there. See how it doesn't come with a fan? Well, there is this little fan over the, I guess the NVMe. And if we scroll down, drivers and downloads, you notice there's two BIOSes, a 115 and a 112. And just to make sure we've got the right one, if we look under the specs, we should see that Ryzen 7 7745. That's there. It's DDR5 RAM. It's a really nice board, by the way. It's 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and the Wi-Fi is that built-in Wi-Fi. Did I have to put the Wi-Fi in it myself? Doesn't appear so. It looks like it came with it. I don't see the specification of the Wi-Fi here. But if we look again, we see BIOS version 105, and they're showing much newer BIOSes. I don't even think the 105 is there anymore. So we could go to the latest, the 115, click on that to download it, open that up, extract it. Oh, because it's a .7z file, what we'll have to do is go to the downloads directory, And once we're here, right click on it and then extract it. I don't know why Windows does that. They built in the 7-zip extraction into the latest version of Windows 11, but it doesn't appear up here as extract like it would if it were a zip file. Now within this, we have a couple executables, and it should be a batch file here, winflash.bat. Now in theory, I should be able to right click and run that as administrator and hit run, and it should run. This is kind of an old school flashing method in the sense that it's not a graphical user interface like what you would see on a modern day do-it-yourself motherboard such as ASRock, Asus, MSI, or a Gigabyte. This kind of flashing method is still typically used on many PCs and on laptops. And in some cases, they kind of hide this window and give you like a graphical progress bar, like that's what Dell will do. But effectively, it's still doing this the old school way. The problem with the old school way is it can lead to mistakes. It can lead to putting the wrong BIOS on. It could lead to applying the BIOS incorrectly, as I've demonstrated the last time I did this, and I did it incorrectly. What happened before is this window would open and close, and something in the batch file was not updated for Windows 25H2. And so what I did is I just did it by hand. But what I should have done is instead of just typing the name of the executable utility followed by the name of the BIOS, there are a bunch of command line switches. And all I had to do was open the batch file and see it, copy it and paste it in the command window, and I probably would have been 100% successful. A BIOS, when you're writing a BIOS, it basically needs to erase the BIOS that was there prior. It's not like writing a file. It's going to write over the sectors it needs to write over in the BIOS and leave the other memory areas. They're not really sectors, but I'm going to call them sectors. It'll skip over those. So if stuff was left over from the previous BIOS and it doesn't get erased, it's still there, and it confuses the BIOS you just put on because you didn't run the command to erase it first. So it overwrote what was there, but it didn't overwrite everything. And then you end up with a system that won't boot anymore. That's what happened to me. And so one of the command line switches, if we look at the batch file, it probably has a slash. It probably has a bunch of slashes. These are what we call switches on the command line. And one of them is probably to erase the BIOS before we write the new one. The new one doesn't write the BIOS, every cell of the BIOS from 0 to 100. It typically doesn't. It only writes the cells that it needs. So if there's previous information left over in the cells from the previous BIOS, you run into situations exactly like what we experienced where the system won't initialize anymore. And the only fix for that is to either send the board into the manufacturer if it's under warranty, or try and desolder the BIOS chip and use a BIOS programmer, but there's no guarantee that that's going to work. Patrick, man, he said Carey's e-waste pile. Well, thankfully, we know about Emerald Computers that'll gladly recycle our e-waste for us. So yeah, this is in the 90s. This was pretty much how we always flash BIOSes, just what you're seeing. This is the original old school method that we used to use. And BIOS updates, you know, there was no internet. So you'd have to like sometimes make a long distance call to the company's bulletin board system. Email was very limited with file attachment size. And often the BIOSes were too big to email. So you'd have to make a long distance phone call with a telephone modem, and then very slowly at 56K connection, download the file, put it onto a floppy disk. And so many floppy disks were just bad. Like just brand new out of the box, they had bad sectors. Then you go to read the BIOS back and find out you didn't get a nice clean copy of it. Hopefully you saved it on your hard drive so you can copy it to another floppy disk and throw that other one into the garbage can. We threw a lot of brand new floppy disks rather, straight into the trash because they were bad out of the package. And even when a floppy did work, quite often within a few months or a couple of years, it didn't work anymore. Magnetic storage media like that was pretty unreliable and very, very slow. But when we did run the BIOS update, it looked exactly like this. So this is old school, very familiar to me. Now, one of the command line switches was apparently to automatically restart the computer once the BIOS update is done. So here's where the nervousness sets in, right? Is it going to boot up? Everything looked good to me, but I will say everything looked exactly the same when we did it the wrong way. In other words, it did the update exactly like what you see here. The difference was the machine would not post again. And the other thing that's a little nerve-wracking is while we're waiting for the machine to post, it has to retrain all the memory all over again. And that can take an uneasy amount of time, especially if you're used to the computer firing right up. You've already forgotten about the first time you fired it up where it took anywhere from 90 seconds to 3 minutes to get to the post screen. So we need to wait a good at least 3 minutes to give this a chance to initialize the BIOS, retrain the memory. Once the memory is retrained, it sets those settings in the BIOS, restarts again before it shows you anything on the screen. So you might get a hint of something happening by listening to the fans adjusting in speed. That's a good sign. And then maybe the fan gets loud and then it gets quiet. And maybe you see the screen blank out and come back. That's a good sign. Nothing to worry about. And then hopefully, if the training is successful, you're going to get a post screen and it's going to start loading Windows again. So here we go. See, the difference those command line switches make is critical. And it's not an option when you update a BIOS through the BIOS, like on an Asus or Gigabyte or ASRock or MSI motherboard, or even a Dell or an HP. They won't let you flash the BIOS incorrectly, nor will they let you flash the wrong BIOS. They don't allow it. But these old school systems, or they're using the old school designs, still flash the BIOS the old-fashioned way. So we have to remember what those rules were, or you have to be introduced to those rules if they're new to you. They're old to me, but they might be new to you. It's easy for someone like me to forget, which is what happened. I forgot, because it had been a long time since I did it that way. And the right thing for me to do would have been to reach out to Minis Forum support and say, hey, when I try and execute the batch file, it just opens and closes. I should have followed what their steps would have been instead of trying to figure it out myself. So I only have myself to blame for the decision-making process. And it just reminded me of something I had forgotten about, and it was those damn switches. So if we go back to CPU-Z again, we should now see we have BIOS version 115. There it is, 115. That's actually pretty recent too. That's just from about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know what it does. And typically BIOS updates are nowhere near as often released or as important when we're dealing with laptop mobile components, soldered components, because those components can't change. One of the reasons you get BIOS updates is for compatibility for different CPUs. You'll never change the CPU on this, so you'll never need a BIOS update for that. But the other reason BIOS updates will come out would be for RAM compatibility for other makes and models of RAM, and or security reasons. That they found something in the BIOS that was potentially, since it was created, a hack has been, discovered, and now they need to patch that for your own safety. So those are typically the reason. And then sometimes there's some optimizations, or sometimes new features like RAID support are added and things like that. So I don't know how critical it is on a mobile platform, but don't expect BIOS updates as regularly as you do for a platform where you can switch out the RAM and CPU and everything. And that's the primary reason why those updates come out. So one thing I would check here, if we run the Uncle Carey's Windows 11 optimizer, we can just check the overall status of everything. And the optimizer is good to go. We are still working on improving and adding more features to it. But where it sits now, it feels complete to me. It's a great way to support the channel and to be able to optimize your Windows 11 system with the push of one button. Now you can do all these optimizations by hand. I'm not doing anything with the optimizer that's not following anything you can't do with your mouse, quite honestly. We're not customizing any registry settings. We're only modifying registry settings that are already there. That's allowed according to Microsoft rules. And if you follow the Microsoft rules, you won't have any problems with updates in the future. But if you're breaking the Microsoft rules because you think you're smarter than them, and this is a workaround to, like, I'll give you an example. There's an article that explains that there's a feature within Windows that if you turn it on, it can make your NVMe drive run faster. Do you know why that feature is not enabled by default? In fact, it's missing entirely. You have to go into your registry and create these new settings and then turn it on. And oh, by the way, the fine print says this may cause your system to be unstable. It may not be compatible with all NVMe drives. And even when it does work, it may actually make no noticeable difference in performance whatsoever. But what also they're missing is, oh, there may be an update that comes out in the future that will crash, or you'll be on the forums asking for help because you modified your system in a way that Microsoft did not authorize. There are a lot of options that you can choose in Windows to customize it. If you're adding options that weren't there before by adding registry keys, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. That is going to almost always come back to bite you, and it'll always be confusing. And what you'll often see in the forums, what I often see, is people say, how come nobody knows the answer to this? When's Microsoft going to build a good OS? They're a terrible company. I hate them so much. I just ended up wiping and reinstalling Windows, and now it works fine. When is Windows ever going to get better? When they cause their own problem by listening to some content creator suggest they make a change in the registry that was never authorized, that they thought, hey, I got free 0.001% faster NVMe speed, no problems, no crashes. What a bunch of idiots at Microsoft to not, include that. And then they completely forget about it. So 6 or 12 months later, there's a problem, let's just say. And the problem is a consequence of that change they made earlier that they've forgotten about, that they concluded falsely was 100% safe. In the meantime, nobody else is having that problem. It's just them. And then they falsely conclude that it was a problem with Windows the whole time, when in fact it was something they did to Windows that other people didn't do, which is why they were affected and other people weren't. And they absolutely refused to look in a mirror to see the source of the problem. This, my friends, is called the internet. All right, let me plug in my utilities flash drive. We'll copy off the optimizer and let's check. I'll give you a demonstration of how the optimizer works. Now, the link for the optimizer is in the video notes, the description here below the video. It's made by our friends at D7X Tech. They're the engineers and I'm the designer. They sell it, they collect your funds, they distribute the software, and if you have any problems, just reach out to them. They handle all the support and payment processing and software. And I'm the designer. All right, so let's go to this computer again. And again, I need to go full screen over here on my side of things. And where's my mouse? There we go. This computer, drive D, go to Uncle Carey's Windows 11 Optimizer. 20 bucks, you can run it on as many computers as you want. We simply ask you not to pirate it. Please don't. If everybody pirates it and there's no more updates to the optimizer, it's because it's costing us money, right? If you can't make it worth our while, if we can't make a little teeny tiny income from it for all the time and testing and effort that goes into collecting payment and supporting it and developing it, then we're just not going to do it anymore. I mean, it's common sense. If every time you try to help somebody, they smack your hand away, you're probably going to stop offering to help, right? So I'm going to double click on this and I'll show you how it works. First thing it wants to know is if you want to check for updates. This is pretty important, especially when it was just introduced. We were coming up with updates quite frequently. We will still get updates for this in the future as we add more features and if any bugs are reported. So I would always suggest you just check. It takes a second. Tells us no updates are available. It's critical you're always using the latest version. It waits for you to acknowledge you've been able to read that. It's not a message that flashes and goes away and you're like, what the heck did that say? So you acknowledge you've read it by clicking OK. And now it's going to analyze our system to see what our current settings are versus what it recommends. Now here you can see everything is in the green. So I must have run this last night and I just don't remember. This top third is just system information for technicians or for the techie types that want to know, what version of Windows do I have? What's the build number? What's the SID of my machine? Because if you're someone who clones computers, you might find your networking stopped working and you don't know why. This will point it out. If you've got two machines with the same SID now, they probably don't work on the same network anymore. Then the username that's logged in this case, the username is user. The computer name that's assigned and the work group that's assigned. So we don't have to go into 4 different menus to see all this. It's all presented in one pane of glass. On the right side, it verifies that Windows is activated, that TPM is installed and working, that Secure Boot is turned on, that BitLocker is turned off, and that System Restore is turned on. And you'll notice the icon turns into a little hand for System Restore. And that's because there's no right or wrong answer. This is a personal preference. So instead it just directs you to exactly where this option is in Windows so you don't have to go hunting for it. These options like displaying this PC icon up here, if you just click that box, that will go away. Turn it back on, comes back right down here. So you don't have to like set a bunch of things and click apply. It happens instantly. Some of these may require a reboot. I just like to hit the Optimize All button. This also fixes the Windows 11 networking issue regarding guest accounts and authentication with SMB. That was recently changed with a Microsoft update. This puts it back. You've got an option to run disk cleanup separately. To run your driver backup, you could back up all your drivers right now. No driver software, no driver backup. Third-party software is necessary. It's all built into Windows. This is an official Windows command. PC Manager is an official Windows product like CCleaner, only unlike CCleaner, there's no potential to harm your computer with it. That's free. If you want to run that, click the box and there's PC Manager. If you don't have it, it'll probably take you to the Microsoft Store and you'll download it from there. So some of the things the optimizer cannot do for you without the optimizer becoming a massive download. So instead, it'll just take you to the right window where all you have to do is click the button there to get it. There we've got the Windows backup. This is backup software built into Windows. Most people don't even know it's there. This is for making an entire system image like a Cronus. And then of course, Windows Update. You click on that, what do you think it's going to do? It's going to open up the Windows Update window so you don't have to find it. Once you've run this, again, it doesn't install. It's just a single run application. You can close it out and you can get rid of it. You can delete it. You never need it again. Unless, you've gotten some changes to your system and you want to set it back, there's nothing to uninstall. And anything you change, you can unchange. Very simple. So if you want more information about that, click on the video description below the video. And we will update that for the life of Windows 11. So when Windows 11's end of life, when Microsoft says we're not supporting Windows 11 anymore, then we're not selling the optimizer anymore. In fact, the Windows 10 optimizer, which was about half the price, but also did about 1/3 of the things that this optimizer does, that's still sold as well if you're a Windows 10 user. Again, everything it does you can do by hand. It just does it faster and more consistently. In my position, I'm constantly working on a different computer, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And if I had to remember, did I set that setting or didn't I? Really, the optimizer is just for me. People saw it, they said, hey, would you sell it? And then that's how it came to be a thing that we sell. It's another way to generate revenue for the channel where you're getting something back in return besides the content. You're getting a useful application that is 100% safe to run on any Windows 11 computer and will not have consequences because you ran it. Because of a Windows update suddenly not working. I can guarantee that. because we're not changing anything you can't change with the mouse and a dial in Windows already. These other optimizers or utilities that claim that they're going to turn off AI features or disable spying, I can almost guarantee you're going to have Windows Update problems. I can almost guarantee it. Those are unauthorized changes that will play out consequences that will be entirely because of your poor decision making. You will only have yourself to blame. You might initially see these utilities improve your performance or your frames per second in your games, but you're going to pay for that later. It's just a matter of time. And it'll be almost impossible to figure out what the heck you did. So the answer is going to be to reinstall Windows. And then what are you going to do? You're probably going to blame Microsoft for how crappy Windows is when you're the one, once again, who caused the problem because you listen to some content creator who didn't foresee the long-term uses of their app, which I think is very irresponsible. And by the way, there's no legality, no guarantee for you being a victim of that, because that was your decision. It was your choice. You could not hold the content creator legally liable for any damages, financial or inconvenience they caused, because at the end of the day, you're the one who caused it. In my world, that's, I'm paid as a technician. If I did that to a customer's computer, I'll be the one paying to fix it. It'll come out of my pocket. So if I'm telling you about this optimizer, I'm telling you under the circumstances that every one of my customers has that optimizer run on their system. And if it causes long-term issues, I am held accountable because of my relationship with my customers versus a content creator and their viewers. I am held accountable to make that right and not bill the customer for it because it's my doing. So it's coming out of my pocket. And if that causes me to then not have any time to actually earn any money because I've got the optimizer's been run on so many systems that I can't earn any money by doing all this warranty work, I probably won't be in business very long. And also probably going to have some pissed off customers over the inconvenience of the whole thing, regardless if they're paying me for it. Regular content creators don't have that. So I just want you to keep, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you, really think through changes you're making to your computer. And at the very least, maybe get a system image backup before you make these changes. So if 6 or 12 months from now, you start having an issue and you go, I wonder if this is because of that thing Carey warned me about. You can restore to your image backup you made 6 or 12 months earlier, put the system back to the way it was. And then you'll probably still be pissed off because everything you changed in that 6 to 12 months or longer isn't part of that backup anymore. There's going to be a loss for you either way. But at least it won't be a complete and total loss. So be very, very careful and accept accountability for the decisions you voluntarily choose when watching content creators on YouTube. Now, with my utility, you can reach out for support if you need help. If we find there's a bug in it or something, it's our responsibility to get that fixed if the cause is determined to be the optimizer. But remember, the optimizer is not doing anything you can't do with a click of the mouse. We're not adding any registry keys. We're not customizing Windows in a way that Windows does not allow. So in theory, all the optimizer is doing is speeding up the process of what you can do by hand, nothing more. And no customization is being done to Windows. It's just optimization of what's there. We're not adding anything. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you see anybody recommending you go into your registry, I hope you know what you're doing. Because while some of those registry changes are valid, there's usually another way to do it, like using PowerShell or something. And even then, usually there's an interface where there are little switches and options that you can click on within Windows. Like what I'm thinking of is the whole Windows networking with the guest account login. There's no option in Windows to change that. You have to use PowerShell or Group Policy Editor. And people that run Windows 11 Home will say, I don't have Group Policy Editor, I guess I'm screwed. And I go, yeah, I didn't pay attention to the video. So we keep going around in circles with the viewers who hear what they want to hear. They skip through important information. And then they claim, well, too bad this isn't for me because I don't have Windows Pro. And it's like, no. Read the video notes, go back and watch the video. And too many people, they want to zip through what they think is the boring stuff. That's the part we call education. And quite often they're asking for help where they need somebody to basically read them a bedtime story because they were too lazy to read it themselves. And they go, well, why didn't this work? And I'll say, well, let me read to you what it says. I'm going to just read to you the very thing you looked at. I'm going to read it aloud to you, okay? Or I want you to read it to me. Why don't you read it to me? And then you force them to read it. Oh, I didn't know that was there. Well, it was in front of you the whole time. So that kind of thing is safe to do in that situation. But a lot of times there are consequences to things that require registry editing. And so even then, I don't recommend going into the registry. I recommend PowerShell or Group Policy Editor. And so in that case, that's exactly what my optimizer does, is it runs that PowerShell command for you so that your networking issue can be fixed regardless if it's Windows 11 Home or Pro. Since the Group Policy Editor would only work on Pro, PowerShell works universally regardless. But we're not going into the registry. I cannot emphasize that enough. And when content creators, they've made their own utility, specifically, you know, the common thing is this can speed up, or this can shut off unnecessary services. This is a light version of Windows 11. Good luck to you. Because if I had a customer do that and then expected me to fix their damage that they voluntarily invoked on themselves, I'm going to bill them hourly for it, and they're either going to pay me for it, or I'm going to say it was nice working with you. I hope you can find someone else that can help you. If you'd have followed my steps, you wouldn't be calling me, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I could be helping somebody with a real problem. Instead, you're tying up my time for a self-involved problem, and everybody's allowed to make mistakes. I get it. That's fine. We'll take care of it. But if it happens again, and it happens again, we're done. Or I'm billing you every single time you do that. So it's going to be one or the other. You're going to pay for it until you stop doing this to yourself and asking me to correct your mistakes. I'm going to bill you for it. That's not part of what the retainer's for. When customers voluntarily, I could give you an example here. Customer says, my internet's not working anymore. When was the last time it worked? Last week. Okay, so what changed between last week and now? Nothing. You didn't install anything new? You didn't move anything around? No. Specifically, when last week was the last day your internet worked? Tuesday. What happened on Tuesday? Do you recall anything happening on Tuesday? No. Okay. So then all day Tuesday is fine. Wednesday, you go to turn the machine on and you got no internet. I said, yeah, right after my wife moved the furniture. Okay, so 3 questions back when I asked you what changed in the last week and you said nothing. Well, I forgot. Yeah, she moved furniture. Okay, so when she moved the furniture, is there a chance that she unplugged the modem? Well, she moved the modem. Okay. Okay, this is what I was, okay, so she moved the modem and now you don't have it. Well, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Okay, that's fine. Can we go and just make sure everything's plugged in, the coaxial cable? Oh, it looks like she didn't plug the coaxial cable back in. It won't reach. I go, well, you can buy an extension or move the modem back. And he does. Problem's resolved. Now, should I be billing for that call? Hell yes. Hell yes. And by the way, you better collect the payment up front. You better say, well, if your internet went down and you're calling me for help, do I have a payment process on file for you? Because I'm going to bill you for the call. Because at this point, you may not even need help from me. You may need to call your internet service provider. I've had clients tell me things went down, like, oh, my email's not working. And we start doing all the diagnostic and come to find out, after 2 days of diagnosing it, they never paid their bill. It's not like the first thing I check. So for the 2 days of work, who's paying for that? It's not my problem. I didn't cause it. I didn't even know the bill was due. Yet they sent bill after bill after bill that kept getting ignored. And eventually they got a disconnect notice that they ignored. And then it got disconnected. And then they called me and said, is our email down? I said, I don't know, let me check. I want to help people, but I also need to pay bills at the end of the month. And I want to hold myself accountable to the changes I'm making. So if I made a change that caused their email to go down, then that's a support call that I could not bill for. Not in my world. That would be unethical. But if they made a change and they didn't tell me they made the change, then I'm not responsible for changes the customer makes without consulting with me first. If the customer is unaware they ever had a bill, I don't know. The customer needs to fix that. How is it possible that you didn't get a paper bill in the mail, you didn't see it in your email before your email got disconnected? Where are those bills going? You should be getting a bill every single month from your internet service provider, or even, if you're paying like an annual hosting service like from GoDaddy or another email host, you should be getting a bill for that. Don't you have a record of that? Don't you put that on a calendar to remind you this bill's going to be due? Or why don't you just pay for 10 years at a time and then not worry about it for a while? So I've been through it with customers, and it always starts out as, you need to fix this. It's like, okay, when was the last time it was working? What's changed? It was working yesterday, nothing's changed. And then, in this scenario, you find out that was the last day that they were done waiting for you to pay the bill. You are so past due at this point. This is not a Carey issue. This is a you issue. Your office is poorly organized. That bill should be going to whoever pays the bills for the office. The electric bill got paid, right? The water bill got paid. You got your paycheck, didn't you? Well, where did you think the email was coming from? Why wasn't that also a bill that was brought to whoever job that was? Correct it. Correct it now so it'll never ever happen again. You don't have to be a jerk about it. This is a stupid problem. I cannot help you with that. You have to do it yourself. You should already, isn't this your job? Don't they pay you to pay the bills? Isn't that your job? Why are you calling me? I didn't know. But it's your job to know. Do I bill them for that one? Yeah, I have to bill them for that. It takes forever to figure that out because I'm working backwards. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the email server. And eventually, I work my way back to the provider. And then once you get the provider on the phone, you say, okay, it's not a router issue. It's not a modem issue. It's not a cable issue. It's affecting everybody in the office, right? Can they check it at home? No, it's not working at home either. So it's a whole different network. Same provider. It's got to be something on the provider side. You get on the horn to the provider. You can't send them an email. You say, hey, we got a problem over here. And they go, well, hold on a second. Let me transfer you. And then you get to the accounting department. You don't need tech support. You need accounting. Fun job. But my goal is it only happens once for that particular customer. At that point, we should never, ever have this problem again. If we do have the problem, it'll be for a different reason. I have spent over a week trying to figure out why a customer's website wouldn't load. Come to find out that customer's website hadn't been paid for like 3 months past due. What a nightmare. 2 weeks I spent working on that. And the end result was that the company that was hosting the website they sold off to another company. So trying to reach out to the prior company to find out they sold it, they didn't tell me that either. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Someone else set all this up for us. We don't use them anymore, so we don't know anything about it. Okay, so let's get the website transferred and, we'll move everything over to the same people that host your email, and now it'll all be just one bill. Is that better? Yeah, okay, let's do that. 2 weeks to solve a really simple and avoidable problem. What are you going to do? It is my job, right, to figure it out. It's just that the job I enjoy doing is, hey, my power supply died. Hey, my printer's not printing. You know, stuff that naturally breaks or that isn't self-induced by the customer, that the customer did not cause the problem. And if the customer does cause the problem, it would be so refreshing if they just start the phone call that way. Hey, you know, I just did something I've never done before, and now I'm having a problem I never had before. Okay, we can get to a solution a lot faster if you're honest. Great. So what did you do? I'm not asking to punish you or to make fun of you. I have to, if we want to get to the solution faster, cut to the bone, you know, cut to the chase. Get it, stop, what is it, tiptoeing around on eggshells? Don't, just tell me. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's embarrassing. I just want to provide the fix quick. Well, I changed this thing and now this other thing doesn't work. Great. That's everything I needed to know. Buttoned up, nice and neat. Let's get that fixed for you. Wonderful. Have a nice day. Let me get to the next person. It's not being rude. It's trying to help as many people as quickly as possible so your bill will be smaller and you'll be up and running faster. It's not there to say, let's just chat on the phone for an hour and a half because we have nothing else to do. I would love that. Let me just send you this month's electric bill and we can chat on the phone every day for an hour and a half if you want. Otherwise, I got to make some money so I can pay the damn electric bill. That's all I'm trying to say. And the more people I can help, the more money I can make. And if somebody's waiting too long, I guarantee you, they'll call somebody else because they're tired of waiting on you. And by the time you get around to them, they're like, never mind, I got it figured out. I hired someone else. And they may never call you again after that. If the other person they called did a good job, did it faster and for the same price or less of what you charge, you created that scenario by procrastinating or not getting the previous customers off the phone fast enough. So that's your, you know, as a business owner, that's your responsibility and your consequences. Mustang Mike said, what's involved in upgrading from Windows, Carey's Windows 10 optimizer to 11? There's no upgrade. There are two separate individual products that have nothing to do with each other. There is no installation of either product. There is no uninstallation. It is a single standalone executable program that can run off a flash drive, and neither one has anything to do with the other. There's no upgrade path because we sold it so cheap. If the only way we could sell it cheaper would be giving it away, and quite frankly, it wouldn't make any sense because there's a lot of expense in providing it. The D7X Tech website, for example, the payment processor has to get paid. The bandwidth to distribute the software has to get paid, and the time and effort that both Nick over at D7X Tech and myself have invested in it is done in order for us to generate some revenue. Not all of our revenue, but some. Every bit helps. So once you buy it, there's no license code, there's no activation. You can run it on as many computers as you want. We're simply asking you not to give it away to friends. You can run it on a friend's computer, but then when you're done running it, take it off. If your friend says, hey, I'd like that, tell them where to buy it. Help support us and help support the further development of the software. Because at the end of the day, it all results uniquely with all of us. There's nothing I should have to tell you. I got the same bills you have. I don't know how you pay yours, but this is a part of how I pay mine and how it's a part of how Nick at D7X pays his. And if we're not able to pay our bills that way anymore, we'll have to use that time for revenue generating. It doesn't have to generate a lot, but it's got to be worth our time. So there's no upgrade because the software is so inexpensive. And it gets updated indefinitely. Like I said, when Windows 10 support ends, we won't even sell the optimizer anymore, let alone update it for Windows 10. When Windows 11 support ends, it will no longer, the Windows 11 optimizer will no longer be available for sale, and it will no longer get any more updates. If it's profitable for us, if it's worth our time, I'm not saying we have to get rich, but you know, I'm not going to spend 10 hours on something for somebody to give me $1.25. Never mind. But if it's fair, if it works out for us, it works out for you, then there'll be a Windows 12 or whatever the next version of Windows is. And we can continue that indefinitely. But we won't support the product when the product we're supporting is no longer supported by the manufacturer of the product. So if Microsoft says we're not supporting Windows 10 anymore, then neither are we. That's all I'm trying to say. But in that window where Microsoft is still supporting it, you get free updates and free support, however long that is. For 20 bucks, that's way too cheap. But I'd rather make it up in quantity rather than trying to sell if the optimizer was $100 and I sold 2 of them, or the optimizer was $20 and to earn 200 bucks I had to sell 10. I'd rather sell 10 than sell 2. And that's always a tough thing when you're selling something is, do you sell for a higher price and sell less, or do you sell at a lower price and sell more? And I have always gone to, I'd rather sell it cheaper and sell more of it and make the money in quantity, just at scale. Because I'd like to have a bigger impact rather than just me helping 2 people. I'd rather help 200 people or 2,000 people or 2 million people if it's possible. So the first step to that is make it very affordable and then see if it's something that people want. And then the hard part is just making people aware it exists. Right back to the whole restaurant example. It's a great utility, it's very inexpensive, and it's supported for the life of the operating system. So what better value is there other than some free project some enthusiast made that, oh, by the way, if it causes you a problem 6 or 12 months down the road, you'll probably never know. So, I'm just playing, but it's a different game played with different rules than what you typically find in the enthusiast community. I'm playing by business rules and they're playing for the fun of playing. There's no rules on their side. And that's okay. It's just how it is. So when I'm here doing it professionally in what is primarily an enthusiast crowded area, I have to make the viewers aware this isn't like the other videos, most other videos that cover tech. Most of them are just doing it for fun. And there's no accountability there. My YouTube channel is an extension of my real life business, and I treat it with the exact same rules and accountability as I do my paying customers. I don't have 2 separate rules. Well, these are the YouTube rules and these are the customer rules. I don't do that. Everything is always the same. Everybody gets treated the same and with the same care and the same quality, regardless if they're a massive customer or a small customer. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is you treat everybody fairly and equally, and you do it right the first time as much as possible. And don't gouge people. Financially, it's not cool. I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to be gouged. One of the reasons I don't like shopping for a car. You and I go shop for a car, same exact car, same exact dealer. What are the odds with no trade-in, and never mind our credit score, if we're going to pay cash, what are the odds that I'm going to pay the same price you're going to pay for the exact same car at the same dealer? Almost unheard of, unless you just don't negotiate and you pay the sticker price, and I don't negotiate and I pay the sticker price. That's about the only way that's going to work, and I'm sure the dealer would like that. All right, so yeah, I like fairness, I like equality. That's a big thing, and I like honesty and transparency and accountability, right? If you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to say, oh, I'm not responsible for anything I say, well, then don't say it. Unfortunately, that's the opposite of social media. But I'm going to do it anyway. Bill said, I bought Carey's optimizer AMD drivers on my old computer, but on Windows 11, I keep everything on the default. I don't change any settings. Okay. Jim Kenny said the Windows 11 optimizer does 3 times what the Windows 10 optimizer did. It's a completely different program. That's true. And it is completely different from the ground up. Part of that is Nick's education and experience has grown in this time, and he's learned different techniques to get things done. And we're not done with it, by the way. There's still a few other features I'd like to add to it. and Nick and I are kind of going back and forth with ideas. And some things I want to do can't be, like trying to figure out how to do that in the optimizers, maybe more effort than it's worth. So then I have to learn to say, okay, well, let's let that go and focus on this, and we'll revisit that later, because times change, and then it's like you revisit it later, and it's suddenly now it's easier to do, whether that's an education issue or it's a Windows update thing that makes it easier to make certain changes. But right now, there's 2 features I'd like to see added, and one of them, if you want to potentially speed up your computer, is in the Windows Update settings. Let's jump over here and I'll just show you. We go to Source Projector, Windows Update settings. So I think we go to the Start menu. I'm trying to remember where this is. Settings, and then we'll go to Windows Update. And then I think it's under Advanced Options, under Delivery Optimization. It says you can allow computers on your network to share the updates with each other. This means your computer becomes a server to deliver updates to other computers on your network in the background, which can slow down your network in your house or your building, like an office. And of course, the more computers you have, or the more updates you get, the more space it's storing these updates on your computer. So you can just say, allow downloads from other devices. I want that turned off. So I'm talking to Nick about adding that in the optimizer as an example. And I don't know if that's something he can easily do. I'm assuming it is, but we've been working on something else, and I haven't followed up with him on that. Now, whether or not that makes a difference to you, I don't know, but it should free up some space that's storing the Windows updates, as well as free up some network bandwidth. If it's, sometimes people say, why did this update install so fast on these 2 computers and so slow on this one? It's because this one was distributing the software to the other 2. When you went to Windows Update on the other 2, it said, oh, he already has the file over here. This is about Microsoft saving money, so they don't have to pay for the bandwidth and the server usage. This isn't about helping you. The idea that we're going to help you distribute your own updates, and it's set on by default. Wonder why they were really looking out for me on that one. That's weird. So as we discover these little tweaks, some of them may make a bigger difference for some of you than others, but none of them should have any consequence, negative consequence, ever in the future. And it's so easy, you turn it back on if you change your mind. So I'm expecting, hopefully we can add that. And there's at least one other feature that's eluding me right now that I'm talking to Nick about too. And as I become aware of other little tweaks like that, we'll add them. So what you see today, you know, when you say it does 3 times more than the Windows 10 optimizer, give it time, it'll do 4 times more as we keep one by one adding a little bit more. I never want it so filled with bells and whistles that it looks really complicated or difficult to use. I want it to remain with a very simple and basic interface. So at some point we have to stop, or it's going to get out of control and it's going to become intimidating for regular users to use it. So we still have to keep it simplified and, you know, not have every possible feature in there simply because it'll be overwhelming to an end user. So it's a delicate balance, and there's still room to grow is what I'm saying, but we don't have an endless room to grow, or people will feel overwhelmed by it. Paul 1961 says, Carey, my RAM compatible issue finally got fixed with the latest firmware update. I no longer have to turn on context memory restore. Now it no longer trains every day with Expo on. You'd have to remind me to the original symptom. What was the board and what was the RAM? Because I don't remember. I love hearing the follow-ups on what fixed it, but if it's been a while since we talked, I don't remember what the symptom was. Mustang Mike said, I'm going to buy that Windows 11 optimizer. Thanks. I want to support this channel. Thank you, Mustang Mike. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you feel like you really get a good deal on that Windows 11 optimizer, you can run it, again, full permission to run it on as many computers as you want. I only ask you, on the honor system, don't copy it off for your friends. If your friends like it, say support the poor guy, you know? Throw him a bone. Thank you, Sil. May I have another? It ain't making us rich, all right? I'm not going over to buy my Rolls Royce. Just get one more optimizer sold. We're trying to make it affordable and make it the best optimizer on the market. So again, it can only happen through quantity. Patrick Manny renews membership, now a member 44 months. He says, if you can read this, you have great eyesight. Well, maybe not so much. Thank you, Patrick Manny. Thank you to everybody in green. Thank you for everybody in white that's joining us here. And Peter, I missed your Peter VZ, who joins us from the Netherlands, contributed €1 earlier. I just noticed it about 2 hours ago, actually. Sunday, we have another Minis Forum motherboard. So remember that one I'm trying to fix with the BIOS update that I screwed up? I'm still working on that. It may never get done. In the meantime, what will get done, because the show must go on, is if I step over here, I will show you the latest and greatest Minis Forum Mini ITX board, the BD895 ISE, second edition. This is a Ryzen 9 8945HX. It has a very similar design to what we've got in here, but much more modern components, including supports DDR5 SODIMM laptop RAM up to 5200 megahertz. It supports a 12 centimeter or 120 millimeter fan with a max TDP of 100 watts. It has two M.2 Generation 4 slots for storage. And it looks like the Wi-Fi is something you have to add. I must have added Wi-Fi to this. That's why it doesn't tell me the Wi-Fi's, because I can see where the antenna holes are, but you can buy a Wi-Fi kit like at Amazon or whatever, and it's just a little card with the wires. And sometimes you get the antennas, sometimes you got to buy the antennas separately. Or you could always just plug a USB Wi-Fi adapter into it if you want to do that. So this has HDMI DisplayPort, two USB 3s, two USB 2s, audio jacks, input and output around the back, along with the 2.5 gig Ethernet port. So very similar to this unit here, just a couple generations newer. It is a mini ITX form factor size, so it's a 170 millimeters by 170 millimeters, 17 centimeters by 17 centimeters, if that helps us Americans. And you're responsible for your own cooling fan to go on the heatsink, your own RAM, your own storage, and your own Wi-Fi. But in a time when all that stuff is super expensive, there's never been a better time to get a board that's using mobile on desktop components. They're a lot more affordable. You get a lot more bang for your buck. And if you've already got the RAM and storage laying around anyway, you can repurpose it, put it into something more modern that's still affordable. I can't thank John Xynos enough, you know, with him sending this for a review, and then the number of times we've upgraded it and the number of videos I've gotten out of it. And it's still not really done. I don't know if this will ever truly be done. So long as new technology keeps coming out, I want this to host it. And I'm so reluctant to change the 9900KS because it's still a really fast chip by even today's standards, but also because of this custom-made liquid cooler holder. I could put it back the way it was, you know, take this piece out and put the original piece back in. But I could also reach out to, I guess it's NZXT, right, that make the Kraken, and see if there's an adapter mounting kit for different CPU sockets that weren't made yet when the cooler came out. A lot of times they are available for like 10 or 15 bucks. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no reason to upgrade it. So you'll be seeing it again. And then I'll reach out and eventually I'll find out where the programming is for that screen to display the basic CPU temp stuff. like I said, he's already got it because he's demonstrated it. And rather than me reinventing the wheel, I just need to reach out to him and ask him. If you want to watch the original build video on this, well, the last original build video, that's in the video notes. Mara's included it there, and it's a public video. Same with this one, public video. You guys can watch that if you missed it, see how we got here. Again, I want to thank the folks at VIP-URCDKEYs. They're where I buy keys for my clients. I use my coupon code the same as you. I pay the same price you pay. Normally, that is not something people in business disclose who their vendors are, but I always look out for you guys, and I want you to be able to buy these keys at the same price. I could choose to sell them to you with a markup. I'd rather not. I'd rather you go do it yourself. You don't need me in the middle. It's unnecessary, just so I could pad my pockets. And if you have any problems with it, they have support for 6 months after the sale. And if you still have problems with it, you just reach out to me directly. If you're curious how you do that, our email address is right here on the screen, right there. And of course, we love hearing from you guys. If you want to share a tale, an experience, a repair or a build, or you have a question, we'd love to hear from you guys. That's our email address. We'll usually respond within 24 hours. And typically, Mara's on top of that. She's doing much of the administration of this channel so I can focus on the content. She does our thumbnails, she does our video description, she does the research, she does the interaction and introductions to other companies that we try and get some products into review. And she's very technically knowledgeable, in some cases at the corporate level, way over my head. But even on a very everyday level, everyday kind of support, she very rarely ever asks me for help. She's normally on top of it. So don't think that if it's not coming directly from me that it's less technically accurate. In many cases, it's more technically accurate. But there are some questions that are directed to me, and she will bring those to my attention. It's because of this system we can get to everybody so much faster. Because when it was just me doing it, it could be weeks before you got a response. So we really appreciate all the hard work that she puts into the channel and all the time she puts in. And again, it's never like you're bothering us. You're always welcome to reach out to us anytime. We love hearing from all of you, members or otherwise. And of course, Minis Forum. We want to thank their continued support. And we're really looking forward to not only this, but they've got a couple new machines coming out that's kind of exciting. The G7 Pro, which I've been talking about for a while, which is AMD based, and the G1 Pro, which is the little portable gaming machine that looks like a book. Yeah, 5070 GPU soldered in there. Yes, I'm listening. They just released them. So as soon as they become available, in addition, they came out with an upgraded version of the AI X1 Pro, which is that AMD 370 chip. Now AMD released the 470. So other than that, it's the same computer. So it's cool. I'm not as excited about it because it's pretty much the same package, faster CPU, next generation. So Minis Forum continues to innovate. They also came out with the N5 NAS Lite. I don't know how they did it, but they made it physically lighter. They still need to get that operating system out of beta though. It's still too early for me to recommend it. But if you're a home user or an enthusiast that's looking to play, the hardware's all there. But their operating system for the NAS, it's the same as a Rico. It needs more time to bake. You can replace it with a NAS operating system of your choice. But my preference is to be able to take it out of the box and use it turnkey. That's my preference, my choice. And so now they have 3 different versions of the N5. Minis Forum has the N5 Lite, the N5 Pro, and the N5 Non-Pro, which is like an i5 instead of an i9 or something CPU. That makes one hell of a Windows workstation that can also run as a NAS. So we will be revisiting the N5 that we have, the N5 Pro, as the software evolves. It's been pretty slow going, but they're working on it. I don't know what else to tell you. And when we get to a point where I feel like it's turnkey ready, we'll certainly revisit it. But in the meantime, if you're more of a DIY kind of person and you want to put your own TrueNAS or Zima OS or something on there, it's ready to roll right now. And so they just came out with a lighter version, the N5. It's literally less heavy. I'm not sure. I guess it makes it more portable, but I think otherwise it's the same. I'm not exactly sure. And I'm not expecting to get any of those in for review, but the G1 and the G7, those I am particularly interested in. So we've got that as potential future content. So Sunday, we're going to put this motherboard into the other case where I broke the BIOS. And we'll keep that motherboard, which is over here, by the way. That's what this is. This sits over here waiting for me to get my soldering gun out and pull the BIOS off of it. And I might break the board because I don't know what I'm doing, and there's going to be a learning curve. If I fix it, I guess I'm just going to have an extra one. If I don't fix it, it won't matter anyway because this is replacing it, which is a newer model, even though there was nothing wrong with this until I caused the problem. It is 100% my fault. I accept liability. If this was a customer's machine, I would be responsible for the cost to replace it because of the bad decision that I made. And there it is. Business has an ugly side. Not everything goes perfect all the time, but it's important you man up and accept responsibility for it if you want to be professional. That's my opinion anyway. Thank you again to Mark Gaines and our friend Buster for their contributions today, and for all of our members. As I mentioned, without the members, this content wouldn't exist. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday. We'll see you back here on Sunday. I hope you'll join me then. We're at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We hope to see you then. Until next time, bye for now.